middaysonline.com.
It is 10:22 on the Midday Show. I'm Andrew Salchunas. 10 o'clock hour brought to us by Window Nation. Take advantage of Window Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows, plus make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. Call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com. I know I'm a hypocrite. I know that I am. I'll be the first to admit it. I don't need somebody to call me a hypocrite, tweeting in, call me a hypocrite. No, I will look myself in the mirror and say, you hypocrite. Because when Nick Serriani had his introductory press conference, I was like, why are you guys picking on the dude? Like, just give him time. Let's see how he is as a head coach. And how he was as a head coach was making the playoffs 3 straight years, the Super Bowl in the second year, and obviously saw the collapse happen under his nose, but they still won, the 11 games and went to the playoffs, right? And all this stuff is true. Howie likes to remind everybody. Nick likes to remind everybody. Everybody likes to remind the Philadelphia Eagles fans that, hey, well, we do have a lot of good people here. We were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff's true. But the bad stuff's true as well. And now I feel like a hypocrite because his press conference yesterday, it wasn't after a game. It wasn't leading up to a game. It wasn't giving updates on an injury. It was talking. It was answering questions. But my God, dude, the dribble that is coming out of his mouth is just freaking driving me crazy. I'm sorry. You could tell I don't want the guy here anymore, right? Like I did not want him to come back as head coach. I'm rooting for him because I root for the Eagles. I'm not one of these guys hoping that I'm right. So just so I can say, see, I told you so. Like, no, I want to be wrong. I want Nick Sirianni to do well. I want the Eagles to do well. But, dude, I'm watching this press conference, well, listening to the press conference yesterday because it was on the air here. And the core value stuff. He's reached Jalen Hurts territory. Love Jalen. Jalen Hurts, my franchise quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts bounces back, has a better year next year. Can't listen to him talk anymore. It's just exhausting. Like, because I'm listening to, these wise words coming out of Jalen Hurts that sometimes don't mean anything. Standard's the standard. Freaking tired of hearing it, right? But what I'm more tired than standard is core values. So let's play a couple clips. There's a lot of core value clips. But Nick Sirianni yesterday was first asked about what the hell went wrong, and they're in the beginning phases of trying to figure that out.
What happened, what we did well, what we didn't do well, right? And obviously there was a drop off and of how we played down the stretch and how we coached down the stretch. And again, those are still in the early stages of us kind of identifying those things. Don't want to give you a premature answer, but yeah, that's what we're in the process of doing right now. And we're committed obviously to getting it better and to taking a good step forward next year.
Is it bad that he doesn't know yet what went wrong? Right, good morning, Ray.
Oh, good morning.
Is it bad that he doesn't know what went wrong yet?
Yeah, I keep playing it back in my head of like what would I have preferred him to say, and it's almost literally anything else.
Because he said, we didn't coach well enough, we didn't play. Like, I know that's you write that down. Knowing that the question's coming, you write that down, you rehearse that a few times. Whatever. Even though that's not the greatest answer, whatever. We know that you didn't coach well. We know that you didn't play well, all that kind of stuff. I don't need to hear that you haven't really figured it out yet. Now, I know a lot went wrong, right? You don't go from 10-1 to 11-6, as I said a bunch of times yesterday, just because of poor linebacker play, right? There's a million things that went wrong. But you made coaching changes, right? You got 2 new coordinators. There's a whole new staff out there. You probably have a plan in place of what you want to do this offseason, players you want to target via free agency, via trade, where you're going to attack the draft after the new league year starts, once the free agency period basically comes to an end, even though it doesn't really come to an end. But once you get some guys that you wanted, you probably studied the film a lot. You probably realized how bad your offense was, and you bring in Kellen Moore for a reason. But we're over a month removed since the season ended, and we're in combine time now. Like, you're supposed to know what went wrong at this point because you need to know how to fix it with the moves that are coming soon. So when I hear him say we're still in the beginning phases of trying to figure out what went wrong, that basically explains why they couldn't freaking come up with an answer to stop the losing skid. Because every week it was, we just got to play harder. Like, they didn't have an answer during the regular season. How am I supposed to expect? I probably shouldn't have expected Nick Sirianni to give us anything yesterday.
Yeah, that's, again, where I was trying to come from was the expectation of what he was going to say and how, like, oh, yeah, there's definitely something that he'll say that will be fine. And this is just not the answer I was looking for.
No.
I don't know what exactly would have comforted me you know, part of me wants to like almost pine for the competitive advantage conversation. You know, like we've really looked and reviewed what happened. There's a lot there.
Stop. If you heard competitive advantage,
No, but not
you
those two
freaked
words.
out.
Not those two words. Because yes, you're right. If he said it, I would have been back here probably taking a shot and collecting my winnings on the
I can't hear that.
bingo for Nick Sirianni pressers. But I think if he had given us something to the effect of, we've reviewed a lot. There's a lot of things that transpired obviously at the end of our season, and we've started to really put into play. Like, give us like something more
Or
of a
we targeted what we need to fix. We just don't want to give out too much information.
like something that is basic. but
Conversations between
forward-looking.
me and players are private, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the forward-looking stuff.
Which is fine. Like, I would take that answer. Don't tell me that you're still trying to figure out what went wrong. You're the freaking head coach. What do you mean you're still trying to figure out what went wrong? You're the head coach of the football team, which is why over the last 2 months, I said it over and over and over again. When they lose to the Cardinals, when they lose to the Giants, I remember coming on here the next day, the Mondays after, and saying, I'm watching the same offense. I'm watching the same defense. I'm watching the same schemes. I'm watching the same plays. You're not changing anything. You're not making any adjustments. Are you going to make the adjustments all of a sudden randomly come playoff time? And then the playoff game happens, and it's the same freaking 5 plays offensively. And it's the same issues defensively. Can't cover anyone over the middle of the field. Not getting any pressure home. Not bringing, when you do bring pressure, you're not having everybody else ready to play. There's always guys streaking wide open. It was horrible. So I probably shouldn't be surprised that he hasn't come to an answer yet as to what went wrong, because he couldn't freaking make an adjustment during the regular season. Now, I was very disappointed yesterday that nothing was asked about his relationship with Jalen Hurts. I was disappointed by that. But he was asked about Jalen Hurts' leadership qualities, because that's something that's been talked about a lot recently, right? It was talked about by Jeff McLane. It was talked about by Derek Gunn. It was talked about by a million reporters. Peter King dropped the bomb the other day just saying, Jalen, lead, man, right? Like, clearly leadership from Jalen Hurts has become a topic of conversation coming from people anonymously out of NovaCare, and it's something that needs to be worked on. Well, Nick Sirianni gave this answer about Jalen Hurts and his leadership.
There's not a book that is written on this is how you lead, right? People lead in different ways. And one thing I learned early about in leadership is that you have to be yourself. And everybody has to lead their way. And Jalen has special qualities that people will follow and people will want to follow. He's got to do what he needs to do to lead in that way. And so some people's leadership style is loud and aggressive. Some people's leadership style is by example, and some is a mixture of both. And so Jalen needs to lead how he needs to lead. And he'll get, just like he has done in other things, he'll get better at that part of his game, and he'll get better at it, just because I know that he'll continue to work on getting better at no matter what part of the game he needs to work at.
So, all right, let's unpack that a little bit. I don't disagree with the notion of you can't fake who you are, right, just to try to appease people or whatever, right? Like, I get that. I don't fake to anybody. I'm me. Who you hear on the radio is who you hear off the air. I'm just me, right? So I get it. But you can't just say, Jalen's going to keep on, he's just going to get better at what he's doing. If it's already an issue, his maybe lack of a vocal voice at times, or, always being so stoic, or not getting together with the team functions, which has been reported about in the past in the Joe Santoliquito story, right? And not just Joe. Derek Gunn puts out the report last week about how once he got the big contract, he was all over the place because he had to do all the endorsements and all that kind of stuff. And I know that comes with being a franchise quarterback, but if it rubs some players the wrong way, if some players found issue with it, clearly that needs to be addressed and that needs to be worked on. Like, Sirianni's answer on Hurts' leadership, Ray, was basically his answer on his offense last year. We're just going to keep doing what we've been doing and just get better at it. Well, if his leadership is already a problem the way that he's doing it, how is he just going to get better at it? Like, he has to change a little bit.
I think he has to evolve.
Yes.
I think change is, and I think that's where the disconnect, I think, in this conversation begins. And this is again where I keep coming to, like, yeah, he got paid, so the expectations raised, but where is he in his NFL career? Like, again, his leadership was perfect when you were 10-1.
Right.
Well, perfect on the surface. I shouldn't say it was perfect because clearly there were issues, but his leadership was something that was commended when they were 10-1. That this is the way he is, and also it seems now he's got A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's been the loud vocal one of the two of them.
It's been his side piece with the being vocal.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that is now something where it's, you can't let someone else be your voice. We can't be wondering whether or not, his vocal leadership is what you are trying to project or it's what you
Jalen
actually
has to speak.
You have to, and I think it comes back also to connecting because it does seem like this whole, like the new contract changed him type of thing, whether it's changed him in a good, bad, indifferent way, whatever it is, you got to get back to connecting the way you connected back in 2022.
Right.
Which is why when he gives this answer, I would be a hypocrite for disagreeing with what he had to say because I've been very vocal on these airwaves for a while now that I don't want Jalen Hurts. Like, if you're asking Jalen Hurts to not be Jalen Hurts, if he's already uncomfortable on the field, uncomfortable off the field, you're asking a guy to be in a different situation.
Strange. Like, if we're just let's just focus on who Jalen is, right? A lot of people pointed this out that he just looked miserable on the sideline last year, winning and losing, right? Just looked miserable. 2 years ago, we saw him smiling. 3 years ago, we saw him smiling. So I don't know, something did change. Like, you could see it, right? Because he used to look happy on the sideline. And I don't think it's because he's got beef with the player. I think maybe the pressure, he just wanted to focus on the game, try to be locked in, something like that. I don't know, but he clearly did change a little bit from 2022 to 23 just by looking at his antics on the side or lack of antics on the sideline.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a guy, like when they say he's been pulled a lot of different directions, he seemed like a guy exhausted by what he was doing.
He did. So I don't know. Like, I think you're right. You don't want to be a hypocrite because people celebrate the stoic nature when they're winning. But here's the deal, Ray. When things are going well, sometimes you're not looking at your leader. Right? Sometimes you're looking at your leader when times are tough because you're looking for an answer. And if he has nothing to say or is not acting any different or no sense of urgency or whatever, I don't know, like people might feel a certain type of way. I'm not saying angry, but they might go, oh, man, okay, way to lead us in a battle. I don't know. It's something that's been talked about a million times now. It's one thing for you and I from 10 to 2 every day to discuss it. It's another thing when it's being reported at this point by multiple reporters from multiple sources inside Novacare that he needs to work on his leadership a little bit. But, we'll see. I hear Serriani talk, and I'm exhausted.
No, it's. I'll be honest. We were airing it. It went across 205, 206. I was like, I'm going to get back to this. I will listen to the rest of this.
Yeah, you didn't want to
a little later. I was done. I can't. He just drives me nuts because it is the most frustrating roundabout way to speak and actually not answer anything.
Oh, he doesn't answer a freaking thing.
It's unbelievable. The guy talks. And he just talks himself in a circle to the point where he's not even sure what you asked him anymore.
Right. He has to sometimes stop and go, what did you ask me again?
Like, if we were having a conversation and you were asking my opinion on Jalen Hurts' leadership, somehow I'd end up in a story about back home and,
Mount Union, man.
Yeah, what Dad and I did when we were throwing the football around. And, okay, yeah, what was that again?
What was the question? Oh, leadership. That's right. Leadership.
That's right. Or, back when I was working with Frank Reich. And, we had a tough
Frank,
day.
It's my brother. It's
Also, while we're on weird topics here, as I do actually derail this, Howie Roseman regifting.
His love for Shane Steichen was crazy.
Regifting Shane Steichen's sport jacket.
He really liked Shane Steichen. Called him a football savant. Right?
Yeah, but he regifted the jacket, man.
Yeah, it's weird.
Why? Just accept it.
Didn't fit Howie.
Well, I'm shocked. Shane Steichen and Howie Roseman, different body build.
Well, don't worry. If you're tired of Nick Sirianni, you're in luck. We got more clips for you coming up. But let's go to the phone. Let's go to Evie in Huntington Valley. What's up, Ev?
Yeah, boys. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm chilling, man. Thanks. I mean, I think we all know what's going on here. I mean, it's one thing to filibuster and act like nobody knows what's going on when you're winning. And you could argue, it's part of their strategy. But when things aren't going right, and you're coming off obviously one of the biggest disasters in NFL
historic collapse, yeah.
I mean, it just comes off as buffoonery.
Yeah, you're expecting an answer. And for him to say that we still haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet, I go, dude, look, I know it was a historic collapse, but come on, man. I need more out of that.
I mean, it's just an obvious lie. We all know what happened. Nick Sirianni decided not to make any changes for 2 months. And everybody in the NFL knew it. They knew what they were doing, and it showed. And in regards to Jalen Hurts' leadership, we all know why, we all know leadership was part of the reason why Wentz was thrown out of town, because he clearly couldn't lead. Along with his play.
Yeah, but I do think that leadership's a lot different. I mean, Wentz had like a group of people he spoke to and wouldn't speak to anybody else.
But with Jalen, for Sirianni to say, there's no rules on how to lead. I mean, I think everybody knows that the biggest part of leadership is to be vocal and to know that when decisions are made, they're made at the top and they're supported from the guys below. And it just, I think we could all argue that Jalen needs to become a more vocal person, and especially when.
Well, I mean, it depends, Heavy, right? It depends. And thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. It depends. Like, I don't need Hurts to start getting like red in the face and screaming, right? Like, sometimes you can just lead by example, but I think it's also time and place. I mean, I don't know. Like, if things weren't going well here at the station, I'm not about to grab the room of people and start yelling at everybody, because that's just because leaders are supposed to be vocal. Like, there are different ways to lead, and leading by example is one of them, which is something that I think Hurts does do. Like, he doesn't look like a guy who avoids contact, right? Like, the guy's game, his finger dislocates in a meaningless game at that point and goes back into the game. So, like, I commend him for that kind of stuff. We've seen videos of him breaking the huddle inside the locker room, right? So we've seen him be vocal before. I think what we just need to find out, and this is, you kind of just have to read between the lines of these stories, is, all right, when times are great and they're winning and all that stuff, like, his attitude's perfect, right? It's just like, let's keep business. Business is the main thing. Main thing's the main thing, blah, blah, blah. Like, what was the Kobe quote? Right, like, we're not done.
Job's not finished.
Job's not finished. That was after what? Winning maybe the Western Conference Finals or something like that. Like, that's he didn't go, yeah, we're gonna go out there and rip their hearts out. Like, no, he just said job's not finished, which is, that's fine. Like, but when you're losing, sometimes you have to turn to your leader and go, all right, man, what's going on here, man? This is tough. And if he has no answers, that's a problem. Now, I think leadership isn't just a problem with Jalen Hurts. I think leadership was also a problem with Nick Sirianni. When Nick Sirianni demotes Sean Desai without talking to the players first, when he's supposed to be a player's coach, I think that may have rubbed people the wrong way, because not everybody was on board with flipping defensive schemes late in the season. There were many players that were vocal about it, about how difficult it is to change everything. Scheme, cadences, the way things are, called out on the field, knowing where you're supposed to be, even if it's just simple changes. Not everybody was on board with that switch. Now, should you always listen to your players, your head coach? No, sometimes you have to make the hard decisions, but he didn't even speak to a couple of players about it. He just made the decision, and not everybody was on board. So there's a lot of leadership issues inside NovaCare, and I don't think it's just Jalen Hurts. So we'll play more Nick Sirianni sound coming up next. I'm sorry. I'm not, but I'm sorry. Because if I have to listen to it, you have to too. Nick Sirianni and these core values. And I'm going to have a question. Jeff McLane's going to be joining us coming up at 11:30. And I can't wait to talk to Jeff. Jeff's out there in Indy for the Combine. Of course, he's out there for all the media, all the coaches and GMs that spoke yesterday. I know some of the players that are participating in the Combine are speaking today. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. spoke today. So we'll talk to Jeff, and I'll have some questions based off of this press conference. But Nick Sirianni and his core values speeches that he keeps on giving, at some point, like, I'm tired of it. Does that message get lost inside the locker room? We'll discuss that next. You'll hear from Nick Sirianni. Also, you'll hear from Howie Roseman, because Howie spoke a little bit about Hassan Reddick. And if you want to talk about reading between the lines, we're going to do that with that clip next, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
At least Ricky Council is fun, huh?
HD1, Burlington, Philadelphia. A Beasley Media Group station. Broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studios. Powering possibilities. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
All right, I feel like I'm like torturing people today because I'm playing clips from Nick Sirianni that I don't even want to hear about core values and about there's no books on leadership and about how he doesn't know what happened yet, even though it's been over a month since the season came to an end. And, you know, the combine's going on right now, like March. March is almost here. It means the draft is almost here. That means OTAs are almost here. That means training camp's almost here. So, you know, I keep on telling you the NFL is a 24-hour news cycle. Well, you got to get to things quickly. You got to figure out what you want to do quickly. There is really no time off in football. Maybe for players, but when it comes to coaches and GMs, there's no time off. And so for Nick Sirianni not to know what the hell happened yet in the collapse, that's not good. You're already behind the 8 ball. I'm going to torture you even more now, right?
Why, man? Why? Just trying to live over here.
I saw a tweet from Clay Harbor, and I want to thank Clay Harbor for putting this out there because I refuse to actually read the mock draft. In Mel Kiper's latest mock, come on, man. They haven't even done the comp. I hate this. What mock do you think he's on already?
This has got to be 3 or no 4.0.
I'm telling I credit him, but he's a thief. You just put out a million mock drafts, and then you can say,
it's the final one that counts. It's the final one that counts.
No, but he can always cite, well, in my mock draft 3.7, I told you that they were going to take this player.
Okay.
2.0.
Oh, wow.
All right, so we're only at 2.
Jeez.
That's good.
He's working behind the 8 ball right now. Like you said, this is a 24-hour thing.
On, man.
We got to keep rolling. I want 4.0.
So in Mel Kiper's second mock draft, this from Clay Harbor's tweet, the Eagles will be drafting edge rusher Laiatu Latu, which I know is a name that people are just going to be so good about here in Philadelphia. So Laiatu Latu is an edge rusher, which makes perfect sense with the Eagles, right? It's offensive lineman or edge rushers. Build the trenches, right?
Can we grow up with the whole build the trenches thing?
Build the trenches, man. Clay Harbor actually says build the trenches in the tweet, too, which is incredible.
Clay, you're killing me. You were a nice guy when I met you here.
So he says this would be a perfect pick for the Birds. He looked good at the Senior Bowl and has had 112 pressures and 23.5 sacks the past 2 seasons at UCLA. Okay, that's great and all. Well, Latu spoke today to the media, right? Guess what he found a new interest in when he was medically retired at Washington because I guess he was dealing with some injuries. He got into firefighting.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So,
not good.
We have another player that is a former fireman potentially drafted in the first round by the Philadelphia Eagles. We can have another fireman, man.
Not good.
This is great. We can protect the link, not just on the field, but also, along the building.
It's the second time Danny Watkins has come up this week, too.
It's incredible. Danny Watkins and now potentially Laiatu Latu. Now, this is pretty bad. Like, look, players are humans, too. We've always talked about this, right? He said, and this per Devin Jackson, who covers the college sports for the Inquirer. You were telling me about him the other day. If football doesn't end up working out, he would like to get back into it and eventually work his way up to fire chief. So my man already has, if this NFL thing doesn't work out, I'm going to get my rookie contract, make a couple $1 million, and then go be a fireman.
Yeah.
You can't draft him.
Good to have a backup plan.
Yeah,
always want to celebrate the backup plan. This backup plan does bring up some tough memories.
Yes, it sure does.
For me, as someone that's already kind of against them drafting on the line again this year in the first round, I think this is going to be what pushes me over the edge. I mean, I was upset before when you said that he was an edge rusher because I just kind of want them to, make it work with the, top tier edge rushing talent they have right now and maybe invest in the other positions that need a lot more help. But yeah, wow, this is not good.
Well, you're not excited for Laiatu Latu?
I'm sure he's a fantastic. I mean, did commit to play for Chip Kelly, so already kind of a red flag.
Well, here's
Chip Kelly and firefighting. I mean, this is like, what year is it?
So here's the deal. He's 23. So he's an older player entering the draft because I'm looking him up now. The reason why it said medically retired, he was with UCLA after already being with Washington. So he got hurt. He played in 2019, injured. Then I guess came back in 2022 with UCLA with the Bruins. I guess he had a change of heart. That he wanted to get back into football, kind of like Grant Calcaterra. Remember that? Like he was going to retire. The Eagles ended up using a 6th-round pick on him, but a 6th-round pick. This is a guy that's already been out of the game of football, and I feel bad because he's 23 years old. He's a kid. He's at the combine. He's about to go to the NFL, and I'm already going, nah, don't want him. He's already checked out of football at one point, unfortunately due to medical reasons.
Yeah, the medical thing.
Right.
You don't hold that one against him.
But then all of a sudden, he's in a firefighting. I'm sorry.
The firefighting thing is more just a ultimate.
It's a here thing.
Yeah.
Like any other team doesn't care. Any other team probably goes, yeah, for the firemen. Like, let's go. But
listen, I don't want this to be an anti-fireman. If you're just tuning in for the first time as a fireman,
it's not anti-fireman.
We appreciate you. You are wonderful. It is simply a Danny Watkins problem.
Well, I mean, I think everybody knows. Thing checks in right away. No more firemen. Yeah, you can't draft any more firemen who, that's what their passion is.
This is nothing against the firemen and the firefighter community.
No, of course not.
Well, listen,
but I'm not asking the fire chief of Bala Cynwyd to start playing for the Eagles.
I know. I got my stopwatch ready. You want to run a 40 for me? I can test you out. There's a lot of holes in that defense, man. We need some cheaper replacements.
Oh God! So that's the latest. It's combine time, so the Eagles are going to be linked to everybody. Don't forget, this is only mock draft 2.0 for Mel Kiper. There's going to be 18 of them. All right. So Nick Sirianni, exhausting me when I have to listen to him speak. So one of the reasons why he thinks they'll be okay is because of the culture. And when we played the clip yesterday, and I want to thank Josh, who works with us, who reminded us of it, after the season ended, when he did the end of the season press conference, he talked about his role as a head coach is to be just head coach of the football team, focusing on the culture, focusing on everybody being happy and all that kind of stuff. Well, he thinks he can get back to it because a year ago they were the best culture ever, Ray. Take a listen.
We're not that far removed from having one of the best cultures, that any of us had ever been around. And that's, our players would say that, our coaches would say that. And it's just some tweaks that we need to do. But make no mistake about it. You can change how you communicate your culture. You can change little ways that you do it with it. But at the forefront, we're never going to change what the culture is. Connect, compete, accountability, football IQ, and fundamentals. And we have the right coaches in here to do it, and we have the right players in here to do it.
Part of me wants to ask Todd DeFeo right now, who's a great man in our promotions department, to give me a prize. And I'll say right now, what were the 5 things? I remember connect, compete. I'm sorry, dude. Like I can't listen to him speak anymore. That's terrible of me. I sound like such a hypocrite because I was the one defending him during the introductory press conference, but it seems like he still doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He just says stuff. He just throws up and speaks. This is what we're going to be focusing on. One of the best cultures anybody's ever been around, Ray. One of the best cultures ever. That's great. Well, what the hell happened last year then? Like, were you full of yourself? It kind of seemed like it when you're walking off the field in Arrowhead and saying, I don't hear you now, Chiefs fans. Like, did you just get away from what you truly believed in? Because the making of a great coach is you stick by what you believe in. And I don't know. It seems like he lost all those.
At the forefront, we're never going to change what the culture is. Connect, compete, accountability, football IQ, and fundamentals. And we have the right coaches in here to do it, and we have the right players in here to do it.
That's good. Connect, compete, culture, football IQ, accountability, something like that.
Something close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
connect, compete.
It's the core values. Those are the core values. Now, he loves his core values. Here's Sirianni later on in the press conference continuing to talk about his core values.
I do think, though, with those core values, you always double down on those because, to me, it wasn't a core values. We didn't just make them up and say, hey, connect, compete, accountability, football IQ, and fundamentals are what's important. That was years and years of coaching and playing that we thought to ourselves, and I thought to myself, these are the common denominators of good football teams. And that's not changing off of a bad spurt, right? And so it is a true double down on those from day one. But connect and accountability are the two, I would say, cornerstones of our program.
What? I don't know what the hell this dude's saying anymore. And what's spurt? It was 2 months, dude. It was more than a spurt. I'm sorry. 1-6 is not a spurt. This isn't a 1-6 stretch in an MLB season when you play 162 games. This is a 1-6 spurt in a 17-week season. And your spurt continued into the playoffs where your team didn't show up. So what accountability of your 5 core values? Like, who's taking accountability?
He's got a core of his core values.
He's got a core of his core
5 core values, but there's 2 core values that are more valuable than the other 5. So those are the cornerstones of the core values. And again, there's 5 of those, but the 2 that really
He's got a core value tree. That's what I mean. Some coaches have coaching trees. He's got a core value tree, and that's what he believes in. And he believes that you stick to those core values.
Now,
how about you stick to coaching? Like, how about you figure out an offense? Like, you know what? It's great and all. Like, you can do. Like, you know how people have the nice signs at their houses, like family, friends, laughter. Like, that's kind of what
live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh,
love. This is his live, laugh, love.
This too shall pass. That's another big one. I'm going to stop. I saw those around Temple a lot when I was a single man. You know, yeah, those signs were all over the place, right?
Congratulations.
You know, this too shall pass, live, laugh, love, all those signs. You see them on the big cups now. What are they called? The Stanleys?
Stanleys.
They're all over
Stanley
the place,
Cups.
right? It's great. I'm happy for you, right? How about you stick to coaching? How about you figure out like an offense? Because you ran the same 5 plays. You had as many plays as you did core values, which is problematic to me, right? Like your core values mirrored your plays. 5 boring plays. A.J. Brown slant route, which you didn't run enough, and then just shots downfield, tush pushes, and a couple of RPOs. It was the same thing.
Whoa. Don't you forget about our favorite play.
What do we have?
Oh, that bubble screen, baby.
Oh, the bubble screen. That's a core value.
That is
bubble
the
screen.
connect of
Yeah, that's one of the
plays.
cornerstones. It's unbelievable, man. Like, just freaking coach. That's all I care about. I want him to be Bill Belichick. Not just success. I want him to say next question. I want him to say, we're on to the combine. I'm tired of him talking. Shame on me. I don't care. I'm tired of him talking. It's just a bunch of dribble.
It's kind of cool, though, how fast he rattles them off because he's said them a million times.
He's looked them in the mirror and just said it over and over and over and over again.
I want to, you're just up in someone's face. Give me the 5 core values of this organization. Connect.
Like, do you think Hurts v. Serriani would be a great battle of just like a press conference battle?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Them sticking to what they say all the time. So Jalen Hurts, as Pat has pointed out, it's the Hallmark card, or it's the Dick's Sporting Goods signs inside
Fortune
the store.
Cookie Wisdom he's also used.
Fortune Cookie Wisdom versus Nick Sirianni and just whatever he has to say.
Keep the main thing versus connect, communicate,
the core
football
values.
IQ, accountability, and the 5th one that I've already forgotten.
Yeah, I need that. All right. Anyways, it wasn't just Sirianni dribble yesterday. Like I said, if you're just tuning in and you're going, my God, this dude's just so miserable. I actually liked some of the stuff that Howie Roseman had to say yesterday. I appreciated that he is excited for this offseason and he's excited to be aggressive for this offseason. There was one thing that really stood out to me that we'll get to in a little bit, probably after Jeff McLane. Jeff McLane will be joining us in about 25 minutes. There was a little bit of a disconnect between Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni and their beliefs on some things. But Howie Roseman, the one thing that does upset me is if you just listen to what he has to say here about Hassan Reddick, I don't think they're really going to do whatever they can to keep him.
Hassan, obviously, unbelievable player for the Philadelphia Eagles. Local kid, great success story. Camden, Temple, Philly. Love having Hassan. I think that, anything that you're trying to do, you're trying to blend, obviously, what you're trying to do this year and how you're going to look in the future. And I think that's the hardest job. But certainly, don't want to get into any specifics with any conversations with players, but have tremendous respect for the player and the person.
Yeah, he didn't give an answer of, we're going to bring Hassan Reddick back. It's what the initial report was. They're going to let him seek out a trade. Now, if he doesn't find the trade and the contract that he wants, I'm sure they'd be happy to bring him back. They would be. I mean, he's not getting paid top dollar right now, so they'll probably be happy with this current contract. But Howie Rose is not going to give too much.
No, it does not sound like I will watch Hassan Reddick in an Eagles uniform next year.
Unless Hassan Reddick can't find a team to dance with. and then he's playing on the current contract that he's on.
Yeah, I don't think that ends pretty for anyone.
No, of course not.
I don't think that ends pretty for anyone where he can't find the deal he's looking for.
Well, he's got what? He's got one more year. So
Right.
this will be his final year. He's still making $14 million. So this will be the final year. And then he goes into free agency. This could be like, all right, let me just ball out. He didn't have a great second half of the season. I don't know what that market is. I really don't know what the Hassan Reddick market is. We love him, right? Like he's a very good football player.
He's one of, 16, 17 guys that had double-digit sacks last year?
Yeah.
How many guys have had double-digit sacks over the last 4 years?
And this was after the first part of the season he was dealing with the club on his hand, and then did fall off the second half of the season because he was dropping back in coverage because of Matt Patricia.
Right. He was dealing with the chaos behind the scenes, and by the way, the rest of the defensive line that just
and yet he still had double-digit sacks. So, look, he's a tremendous player. I don't know how he's viewed across the league. I really don't. We see it every day. I don't know how people view him across the league.
I mean, I would have a lot of questions for the league if the league didn't value him. I mean, he's 29. He's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 at the start of next year. For, an extension that gives him another 2 years on this deal, or, potentially going free agency next year, we're signing a 3-year deal. Likely in the first 2 years of that deal, you're getting the value.
Yeah, you're still getting a lot of great play.
So, I mean,
But he didn't say, Howard didn't really give an answer where you're saying, all right, Hassan Reddick's going to be back here.
No, the answer actually was quite the opposite for me, where I was like, yeah, I think I've seen him play his last game as an Eagle.
All right, so we have more Serriani core values I see on the screen here. I can't get enough of it because I'm learning a lot. Like, he said there's no book on leadership, but he's writing a book himself. Like, I hope Serriani wins 15 Super Bowls with the Eagles. That would be fantastic, right? And then when he decides to retire and spend time with his family, but he gets an itch to do something, I hope he writes a book called Core Values. Let's see him explain some more.
Those are the ones that when I really take away, hey, these are important, that we play with good football IQ, that we play with good fundamentals, and that we compete our ass off. Those are important, but it all starts, everything starts with the accountability and the connecting. And so it's almost a double down, a triple down on those core values, and I look forward to when the players get back to do that. And as you see, that we've been kind of doing it as coaches with our cheesesteak tour.
Hold on a second. So I saw the photo. They went to Gino's, right? So that's one of the answers. They're going to get cheesesteaks, so is that accountability? Which
That's connection, I think.
Oh, it's connection. Okay. Which is that one of the two? I forgot. What was the cornerstones? Accountability.
Well, no, he just listed 2 new cornerstones of the 5, so I'm kind of confused. I mean, maybe 4 corners, then one's just kind of at the center.
So what you're saying is he doesn't know still what happened at the end of the season, but he doesn't even know the own core values in which he preaches.
He knows them. They're all cornerstones. Which, if they're all cornerstones, you could just say that those are your core values.
Like, I'm exhausted listening to him speak. I don't think he's Gabe Kapler. Like, Gabe Kapler was a weirdo. Like, Sirianni's a football guy. I think he's still a football guy. I do. He loves football, man. He eats, breathes, and craps out football. That's all he cares about, right? He's got core values in football. That's live, laugh, love. Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love.
This is core values, family football. Like, that's his, right? That's his sign. I just, like, I wonder at some point, like, Gabe Kapler, once you start losing, you start realizing the weirdness. And you're like, nah, I don't want to play with this guy. I don't think Sirianni's weird like that. But I wonder once you start losing and you're like, oh, yeah, that core value thing, it's getting kind of exhausting. Like, at what point does the messaging get lost?
Probably at the 4th core value.
Like, if I'm sitting there going, you're about to play week 6 and you're 2-4, or you're about to play week 7, you're 2-4, and he's preaching core values. All right, dude. Like, how about we design an offense that, like, is gonna work?
Oh, all of next season's decided in the first month.
Yeah, because they're not gonna have that collapse, and if they start off slow, then there's gonna be a lot of questions about the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think the whole teetering conversation. I think you go into next season.
I think
teetering.
you're right. You're right. You're not on steady ground going into next season. All right, so coming up next, we'll be joined by Jeff McLane. Can't wait to talk to Jeff because Jeff is in Indianapolis for the Combine. He was at the press conference yesterday. Going to get his thoughts on what was said yesterday. And I'll ask him if he thinks the messaging at some point gets lost, or am I just reading too much from a press conference, which, look, that's part of the job is listening to the press conference over and over and over again, and at some point you get exhausted hearing it. Also, before we get to Jeff, we have a huge anniversary today. Not that long ago, but a huge anniversary that has changed so much in Philadelphia sports. I'll tell you what that is next. It's a 5-year anniversary of something big right here at 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update. 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 11:20 on the Midday Show. Andrew Salchunas here on 97.5 The Fanatic. 11 o'clock hour brought to us by Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Jeff McLane was scheduled to join us at 11:30, but he is busy at the Combine, so he just asked if we could push it to 12:30. So Jeff will be joining us in a little over an hour from Indianapolis. We obviously the Combine going on, and it's not just about the cone drills anymore. It's also about all the scuttlebutt going on between coaches and GM. Like, everybody's out there. It's funny, Senior Bowl. Remember, Jeff was down at the Senior Bowl, and he said, yeah, I'm not here for the actual Senior Bowl. I'm here for information. And Roseman and company weren't even there this year. It's becoming the Combine now is the gathering of information spot for people during the offseason. So we'll talk to Jeff in a little over an hour. He had a story in the Inquirer today about Hassan Reddick. Teams have been calling, according to Jeff. So we'll talk about that because obviously Hassan Reddick was able to seek out a trade. So we'll see what McLane could tell us. I'll just ask him straight up if he thinks Hassan Reddick's going to still be on the Eagles next year, because it didn't really seem like it during the press conference yesterday when Howie Roseman gave his answers. Now, speaking of the Eagles and speaking of Jeff, so this segment, I got a lot of stuff for you this segment. So we're going to bounce, and it's all sports related. I got Eagle.
Oh, no way.
I got Phillies, and I got Sixers. All
Sweet.
right? So first we'll start with the Eagles. The NFL Players Association did a player poll about the league and teams and, their facilities. They do this every single year. The Eagles graded out as the fourth best franchise in the NFL, 14th last year, so they made the jump up to fourth. Here's how they graded out. Treatment of families was just a C. I don't know. What does that mean? Like, I'm guessing tickets or something? Like, I don't know what treatment of families must be. But the Eagles got only a C. They were a B- last year. Their food service, more importantly, though, was an A.
More importantly, yes.
Yeah.
I've long said food over family. Put that on a T-shirt and sell it.
Food service was an A. There was an A last year. Weight room, A- this year, A- last year. The strength coaches, Ray, graded out as an A-, but they were an A+ last year, so they took a slight step back. What does that tell you about the collapse? The training room increased to a B+ after a C- last year. The training staff took a dip from an A+ last year to an A- this year. The locker room, B- increased from C- last year, and team travel increased from a D to a C. They added 3 new categories. Nutritionist/dietitian got a B. Owner, Jeffrey Lurie, got an A, which I don't see how that can't be. Like, I think Jeffrey Lurie's a tremendous owner, and that's me from afar. Head coach. What do you think the grade was?
A B.
He got an A. So now people are having fun with this. Everyone's going, yeah, but you're all telling us that everybody hates Nick Sirianni and blah, blah, blah. Now, what is it? What makes him an A? Is it because he's a great leader? Is it because he's a great offensive mind? Is it because he runs very lackluster practices? Could that be part of it,
Could be a combination.
Could be a combination. But ultimately, Nick Sirianni grades out as an A amongst players in the NFLPA player poll. Here's the following statement on the Eagles voting. Survey respondents consistently grade the staff highly. The strength coaches, training staff, and head coach Nick Sirianni all receive extremely high grades from the players. The players also have a lot of faith in club owner Jeffrey Lurie's willingness to continually upgrade the facilities. Last year, the survey highlighted that the Eagles had some of the smallest hot/cold tubs in the league. In this offseason, Ray, the team upgraded their tub room,
Important.
which the players appreciated. The players mentioned 2 priority areas that they would like to see upgraded as soon as possible. God, these guys have it rough. First is the team's travel setup. Players feel crammed in the back of the plane while the staff sits in first class.
Explains the collapse. There it is, right there. That's the sole reason why.
The second issue players mentioned is the need for a renovated locker room, which feels outdated. Man, they live a different world than we do. They live such a different world than we do.
You know what's funny? I'm hearing like the grades that went down from like an A+ to an A-. And I'm thinking about the fact that they're now drafting from all these high-level colleges. And I'm wondering if, like, it's like, you know what?
Well, some of those locker rooms are
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Correct.
Even not even high-ranking colleges. Like sometimes, like
You just get one.
you get one big donation.
One donor that hits it big.
You make a great locker room to try to recruit players that way,
Correct.
especially those smaller schools, and now with NIL deals and all that stuff. But man, this is a different world.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. That's
we have lockers in the back.
I like my locker.
We have
I
a,
would
we
give
have a
that
back
an A.
hallway. We have lockers.
Yeah, I would give that locker room an A+. After the show, sometimes when I'm going to grab my little mic cover, my headphones, I run into Bob.
Yeah,
Bob
it's
and I have a
nice.
nice, and we're the locker next to one another, so we're able to have a nice little banter, nice little conversation, and then
Yeah.
I move on with my day. He moves on with his day. It's great.
In case people are wondering, the lockers are like the lockers you'd have at high school, not the lockers like the players have.
Yeah,
In the
that's
NFL.
where I store all my lunch money, right? Yeah, I have that, and my textbooks are in there too.
We stuffed right in the locker not that long ago.
that's true,
That was his
actually.
initiation.
That's
to the station.
Yeah, I'm wondering why no one else had that initiation. It was just me.
HR had a problem with it.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the second thing I want to get to you, the Sixers. So yesterday, one of my two, I had two best men. I've told this story a million times. Couldn't pick between the two. One of my best men, Jimmy, just sent me a random photo, and I tweeted it out yesterday. It was a photo of me. This is when I was producing for Anthony at the time, so I'm sitting in the chair that you're at now, wearing the printed out version of the James Harden beard. I wanted to specify printed out version because I was literally getting paper cuts under my nose the entire day that day. But look,
It looked really real.
I'm tough.
I thought you had grown
Oh,
it
you
out
thought
there.
that was real? Yeah. That was before the trade happened. So I'm looking at this picture. I'm all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? I'm all excited.
Bushy beard.
Bushy beard, yes. They're gonna get Harden, right? I was just waiting for the Shams or Woj bomb or wind gust. It didn't matter who reported. I was just excited for Harden. I'm looking at myself right now. It's kind of like the what was the movie Interstellar, where he's yelling from behind the bookcase.
Yep.
I'm looking at this picture, trying to tell myself not to get excited. And I just remembered, like, I was so excited. Then they play the Heat in the playoffs after they make the trade, and they're down 2-0. They come back 2-2. And unfortunately, in Game 5, Joel Embiid's got the mask. Dwayne Dedmon hits him in the face, and it's over after that. And then they're up freaking 3-2 with 5 minutes left. And they can't freaking win. I have to hear Doc Rivers over the weekend talk about how, well, the plan was to get the ball to Joel, and trust me. He's got to absolve himself of any issues. And now I just saw a tweet from Sixers Galaxy, at Sixers_Galaxy. George Niang was on the Woj pod, which, what? Okay.
I can't wait for the Niang media career. He is angling for it so much.
He's good
it's
at
gonna
it.
Be great.
He's good at it. I'm surprised that Woj
when he was here,
had George Niang on, but whatever.
Was it first Friday?
Yeah,
he was fantastic.
Great. He's great. No, he's awesome. And he's apparently one of like the biggest smack talkers on the court,
Which is awesome.
Which is great. So George Niang was on the Woj pod, and Woj asked him if the team he's on right now, because he's on the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're having a tremendous season. Did you see the buzzer beater from Strus the other day?
Ridiculous.
Crazy. Woj asked him if this team that he's playing for right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, is the best team that he's ever been a part of in the NBA. To which he responded, "That's tough. I hate to look in the rearview mirror, but that team last year that we had, I'll always have I don't want to say soft spot, but an empty spot, in my heart for that team because I really thought we had enough, top to bottom." So I got to hear Doc Rivers over the weekend tell me that it's not his fault. My buddy sends me a picture of me rocking the James Harden beard before the trade happened. And now I got to hear George Niang talk about how the team that he's currently on, second seed in the Eastern Conference, you just give the cupcake answer of, yeah, man, so glad to be here, really excited. No, he's still thinking about last year and how they were up 3-2 in that series and freaking blew it.
Well, that's great. I really do appreciate you dragging me down here with you in this one.
This is what we do as a show, man.
Yeah, I'm distraught again, all over again. I'm even more distraught thinking about the way this is trending for this team and how close they are to the play-in right now, and the fact that how great a chance last year was and where it went, and
You learn anything yesterday?
Yeah. I learned that the Paul Reed victory tour was short-lived after those 4 games that he had. I think it was going into the All-Star break, coming out of it. That was tough. Ricky Council, still a lot of fun.
Still a lot of fun, yeah.
Giving me reason to, keep tuning in, keep getting excited. Tyrese Maxey can score the basketball.
Yes,
and
sure
Tobias
can.
Harris is still the most frustrating player I have had the pleasure of watching for an entire 5-year max contract.
He's absolutely incredible. 5 of 19 from the field yesterday. 5 of 19. And just did nothing for them offensively or defensively. You couldn't even give him the whole, at least he played hard on defense. Because remember, he himself told us that.
It's tough guarding Tatum.
It's tough guarding Jason Tatum in a game in which you scored 2 points and botched wide open layups. There was a layup where he was on a fast break and missed it. I'm going back to the playoff series here now. He was just horrible, has been horrible, is basically unplayable at this point.
He's got to come off the bench.
Yeah, but the problem is, who are you going to replace him with? Batum, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's just you can't have him and Oubre, I think, in the same starting lineup. And Oubre, as his usage has gone up, has also been bad. That's another thing.
He's a guy that needs Embiid.
Yeah, because when he came here, and I remember at that point I was working with Tom.
I was excited.
I was not. I did not. So I was not a fan of his from last year because it was okay, a lot of these stats were empty. Look at the usage percentage. Look at how efficient he was. And me being, a little bit naive and, short-sighted in that one, when he was playing with Embiid, his usage was never going to be what it was, obviously last year. I didn't know if he could come into a role and play it like that. He did. And while he had Embiid, I think, the first 2 months of the season, really good for him. He was really good for you. As his usage has increased, he's become less efficient. I mean, if you look at the percentages for him the last couple of months, especially from 3, it's ugly. Don't do it. Don't look at it. Whatever you do, I'm begging you, you're going to go be as upset as I am right now. And that's been a problem. But having him and Tobias on the floor at the same time to open the game, to me, it feels useless. It feels useless because you got 2 guys that right now are not
it's once
efficient.
again, what is Tobias Harris's role? And that's been the whole freaking 5 years. It's been the whole 5 years of his tenure here. Well, 6 when he was here before he even got the max contract.
5.5.
5.5. I don't know what his role is. And he has not fit with any team that he's been on. He's not fit with any team. The Jimmy Butler days, he was just standing there like a ghost. There was one year where he was shooting 40% from 3. That was with Ben. Ben was still here. That was the Hawks series year. He actually had a very good year. I will give Tobias Harris credit. He had a good year that year. But since then, man, it's just he never fit with Harden. He doesn't fit with Maxey and Embiid. And yet we actually went through all 5 years of his max contract, which is amazing.
Which is the thing. The contract's expiring at this point, okay? It doesn't really matter if he's, the happiest with he doesn't look happy in general. Right now, I don't know if he's dealing with something. I think post game he alluded to something.
I know he was dealing with an injury, and I hope he can get healthy and get back to being the 17-point a game scorer that he was. But is that all that it is? I mean, he's still playing 30 minutes a night.
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I've got the medicals in front of me. I'm talking to people. I don't have that with you. I'm just telling you from what it looks like. I mean, there are plays where he's being the effort. And I don't, again, if you're dealing with something or you're upset with something, I don't know. But outside of just the poor play, it's it just seems like the engagement with him is off right now. And honestly, he's better suited to come off the bench at this point. You're better suited. I'd rather Batum sitting in the corner there knowing, okay, that's your role, man.
Right.
Throw me a nice entry pass.
Whereas I don't know what Tobias Harris's role. And by the way, he himself has complained in the past that he's had to do too many different roles.
I don't think they have a role for him right now.
Because he's not exceptional at anything. He's not an exceptional corner 3-point shooter or perimeter
3-point shooting is as bad as it's been in a decade.
I like him in the post sometimes, but he doesn't do it enough. I don't know what he does exceptionally well, and yet he got a max contract. Unbelievable.
With Embiid on the floor, Embiid patrolling, at the free throw line, elbows extended there, I can see a role for him where he's kind of running baseline and they try and, create something for him there, where he can get out of the way. If they end up double teaming, he can step out and Embiid could throw him a pass where he gets an open shot. I could see something like that where they could start running offensively. But right now, I mean, he can't run that role because you're not Paul Reed outside of, inside the first couple feet. And, Bamba is able to step out there and knock down a shot. But, again, this is the front court you're running with right now. Last night, I got people on my timeline pining for Mike Muscala, which, honestly...
I saw it again. I saw it this morning, too.
I'm pining for it because I need some addition to that front court right now.
Well, that's why I was interested in Olynyk when he was available for the trade. But then, somebody, I forget who traded for him. That was pretty early on in the trade.
Right, it was early. We were on the air. It was like right around the heel time.
It was right around the heel trade, yeah.
I mean, and that's fine. Like, you struck out on that one. Muscala, guess what? If you say you're building through the buyout market, you weren't willing to pay the price for Drummond, guess what? You need to add something to that front court right now. A little bit of
a shot, and he's only going to play a couple of minutes for you. But right now, look,
I was talking last week about Darius
B-ball, B-ball Paul.
I was talking about Baisley last week.
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. All right, before we get back to the phones, we do have an anniversary today. Happy 5-year anniversary to the day Bryce Harper signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. I still remember I was in my first Manny Young house when that happened, and I was in the kitchen when it happened. I still, that's one of those, it's weird that I remember exactly where I was when a player signed. It wasn't like a world event. It was when a player signed.
I know where I was.
Where were you?
I was in class.
Okay.
I walked out of class.
Celebrating?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
As you should.
Yeah. I mean, I think my professor didn't understand, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, what's changed my life more? That course or Bryce Harper?
Depending on what the course was. What was the course?
It was not something related to this. I don't want to say the specific course because I don't want to, I don't want to. It was a nice professor, nice person.
Half of it's bogus, if we're being honest.
Woo. Listen, just because I haven't used it since I took that course doesn't mean it's bogus.
I had to take a 4-credit art course to reach to my credits. I forget exactly. It was called, Experiences Through Art or something like that. And it's like, what am I freaking doing here? And the first project was do something with something on your head. That was the project.
Oh.
I wore a Phillies hat and juggled for 3 seconds.
Did you get an A?
I got an A on it.
No.
Yes. It's ridiculous. And I spent... Anyways.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I got to the end of my time there, and I kind of, run through. I was pretty close to being out. I should have graduated earlier than I did. So I was starting to take some... I had a golf class, which was awesome.
Oh, I mean, look,
Coach Teasdale, awesome dude.
I hope you're...
My dad, when he found out I was taking a golf class...
Not thrilled about it.
What are we doing here?
I hope you're a good golfer now because...
No, I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
so it did nothing for you.
No, that's not true. It was a lot of fun. Again, Coach Teasdale's the man.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, hey, listen, college is about the experience,
But anyways, Harper, 5-year anniversary. It's been freaking incredible. You want to talk about... we're in this final year of the max contract for Tobias Harris. Harper's signing has been everything is advertised. The only thing you don't have yet is the actual World Series championship, but he's won an MVP. He's had moments, right? Obviously we know about Game 5 of the NLCS sending you to the World Series, but also the Cubs Grand Slam, right? The walk-off in a season where they didn't even make the playoffs. He's been everything is advertised, except they have not won a World Series yet, which you were hoping will happen in time. And he hasn't been an all-star yet, but who cares? Ultimately, he wasn't an all-star the year they won an MVP.
Yeah, I only mark good baseball players by all-star appearances.
Yeah, exactly.
Whit Merrifield actually has been better over the last 5 years than Bryce Harper.
But, man, that changed everything for the Phillies. Everything. I mean, they were in a 10-year 8-year playoff drought. It got to 10 years before they ended up making it to the playoffs. And signing him was supposed to get you out, right? Well, I think ultimately become a better baseball player, but it was kind of like Jim Thome. When the Phillies signed Thome, that was supposed to be what took you out. Now, he wasn't around for the World Series team. Eventually, it was Ryan Howard, but it was that kind of a signing where you're all right, we're finally turning to the next chapter in Phillies baseball. That also a 14-year playoff drought, even though Thome wasn't even around in 2007. No, it was Howard. But, that was that kind of a move where you go, all right, what's next? It's been perfect with Bryce Harper. Let's go to Uncle Frank. Hello, Uncle Frank.
Happy hump day, home slices. How's everybody?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. Everyone in the Delaware Valley, our football coach has me scared. I got to tell you.
Well, he graded out as an A. Man.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking to that report card, Nick Serriani, 100% of players feel that the head coach, Nick Serriani, is efficient with their time. So that means, short practices? Oh, I like him.
I hear Corvallis again. I'm going to lose my soon-to-be feeble, forgetful mind.
Don't worry, you'll hear it again before the show's over.
Yeah, 5 core values, right? I don't give it an F-bomb with that. I don't what they are. I don't know. How about, what the bleeps 1, bleep me 2, full of bleep 3? I don't know. We don't give a bleep and bleep you. All right. There's all the damn core values. The hell out of here. Why, less yap, more snap, Nick. Come on, man.
Sounds like some of your calls.
Yes. Boom! Give him a rim shot.
that was a good one. I gotta give myself a pound in the back for that one.
Why do I have a sneaky suspicion that they will not charge out of the gate at the beginning of the year? I mean, I just don't know how he turns over the culture.
I mean, yeah, that's the big look. I think they're still going to win at least 10 games next year, right? They're going to be a good enough team unless they're a complete dumpster fire coming out of the gate, which I don't believe. I really don't.
I'm concerned about the culture.
I am too. And he says that he's going to do whatever he can this offseason to instill that culture again that they had 2 years ago. Well, you're part of the reason why the culture fell apart. Like, you let this all happen. Thanks for the call, Uncle Frank. Like, he let this happen under his nose. So, yeah, Nick Sirianni grades out as he was number 1 in terms of efficiency with the players' time. So no time's wasted. He was 7th for players feel that Nick Sirianni is very willing to listen to the locker room. That's good. He is a player's coach, allegedly. Allegedly. Great out as an A, Ray.
Well, glad he's a player's coach, because if he was a coach's coach, a lot of coaches were looking for jobs after working for him this year.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so coming up next, speaking of Serriani and, his voice being heard, something caught my ear yesterday. Howie says one thing, Nick Sirianni says the other. So already the two of them might not necessarily be on the same page. And it's one of these, who are you going to agree with, or who are you going to side with, or do you get a sense that both are correct in their thinking, but they're not on the same page? I'll play you a clip from Howie, and I'll play you a clip from Nick Sirianni coming your way next, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Hey, at least Ricky Council's fun. I'm right.
Tunis, 97.5 The Fanatic, and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 11:50 on the Midday Show, 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. Jeff McLane will be joining us coming up at 12:30. Also in the 12 o'clock hour, we're going to have some fun with something. Because I read something this morning that took place in Florida over the weekend that I thought was hilarious and ingenious and just incredible. And I think it could be something that we can incorporate in Philadelphia. So we'll have some fun with that later on the 12 o'clock hour. But I do want to get back to the business at hand, which is our reaction to the press conference yesterday, where both Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni spoke. And I would love to hear from you at 610-632-0975 what some of your biggest takeaways were and whether or not you're feeling better or worse about the Eagles going into next season. And so I started the show today reminding you of what I said yesterday. Yesterday, I was open and honest with you. Right? I wasn't doing it to try to get reactions, stir up drama, right? Like, no, I was just being honest with you. I am honestly already worried about 2024, the upcoming Eagles season. Not because I think they stink. I think they're a talented bunch. I still think that offense is a lot of talent. Howie Roseman yesterday in the press conference talked about how he's going to be aggressive. There's obviously the extra $30 million in cap space now. There's going to be money coming off the books. There's the ability to make trades. And Howie Roseman said he's excited to be aggressive. So I would imagine that they will be aggressive on the defensive side of the ball because they paid no attention to the defensive side of the ball last offseason, to which Howie Roseman has admitted, right? He's now said it twice. So I'm excited for the team itself. It's just the aura surrounding the team I'm not feeling all that great about. I'm not. There's too much about Hurts and leadership. There's too much drama surrounding A.J. Brown, and I don't think it's caused by him. You guys know it, right? It's just there's just so much going on, but like I don't know. Is it going to be a happy ending? I don't know. And then Serriani, I didn't want back to begin with. He's now back. And yesterday during his press conference, let's play the clip that we played earlier in the show, Ray, where he basically admits to you that he still does not have an answer as to what went wrong with the team last year.
What happened, what we did well, what we didn't do well, right? And obviously there was a drop off and of how we played down the stretch and how we coached down the stretch. And again, those are still in the early stages of us kind of identifying those things. Don't want to give you a premature answer, but yeah, that's what we're in the process of doing right now. And we're committed obviously to getting it better and to taking a good step forward next year.
It's one thing for me to poke fun at the core values thing and talk about how tired I am from hearing core values and accountability, connectivity, and 5 core values. I'm freaking tired of hearing about them, right? That's one thing. It's another thing where he's admitting to you that he still doesn't have an answer as to what happened last year. He was the one that was living it. He was the one that was coaching the games. He was the one that was getting the game set, coming up with the game plans offensively, helping out the defense as much as he could. He's the one that knows what the relationships are like between players or between he and a player, working relationships with other coaches, working relationship with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. He's the one. He's the head coach of the football team. Imagine your boss, imagine any leader of whatever walk of life not knowing that something is going wrong or why something is going wrong and having a month to have come up with an answer. He had 2 months to come up with an answer before the playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and his offensive game plan was to not have any response for the blitz against Todd Bowles, who is known to bring heavy pressure. Like you knew that was coming, and you had no answer for it. Now a month has been removed since the season's come to an end, and he still doesn't have an answer. I don't want to give you a premature answer. We're still in the early phases of trying to figure out what went wrong. Do you have any ideas? That's scary for me. And something that caught my ear yesterday that I found pretty interesting was what seemed to be a disconnect between Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. Now, before we play those clips, I've had a theory in the past, and I think he's gotten better at it. But toward the end of Doug Peterson's time here in Philadelphia, Howie Roseman was very hands-on. Based off of some reports, based off of some of the things you hear, but then based off of just my own beliefs, right? Remember, Alshon Jeffrey was being outplayed by Travis Fulgham. second Alshon Jeffrey's back, Fulgham takes a seat on the bench. Like, see, dude, sorry that we know that you're on pace for 1,000 yards in the middle of the season, but Alshon Jeffrey's our number one wide receiver. Alshon Jeffrey's on the final year of his deal. There was no need for him to play at that point. But I had a theory that because he got a contract and paid a lot of money, they had to show his worth on the field. I don't know. There was miscommunication. I think Hurts didn't dress week 1 of his rookie season. Remember that? He was not dressed. And then week 2, he was mysteriously dressing because there was a lot of backlash of how is your second-round pick not even dressed for a game? And then all of a sudden he's dressing week 2. I had some theories that toward the end of Doug's regime, Howie Roseman was much more involved than he probably should have been. But it won them a Super Bowl, right? His actions and Jeffrey Lurie's involvement, they did win a Super Bowl, the first and only Super Bowl in Eagles franchise history. And then when they were done with Doug, it felt like everybody kind of regrouped and realized what they had done wrong in the past. Howie Roseman started listening to his scouts more, which is something that has been reported. I'm not just speculating. It has been reported that he started listening to his scouts more after that Jalen Reagor debacle, right? When all the scouts told him Justin Jefferson, and he said, no, I'm the football guy here. I'm drafting Jalen Reagor because of his leaping ability. Well, he started listening, which is good. So yesterday, Howie Roseman says something about younger players. So let's go with cut 8 first, Ray. Here's Howie Roseman talking about the use of young players.
When we look back, and Coach and I talk about it a little bit, it's okay to play some young players. It's okay for them to get experience and kind of see what you have. Based on where some of our guys were, they had the ability to sit back and learn a little bit because of the situations that we were in. I think going forward, it's going to be harder to do that. Obviously, just as you look at our team and who is making a lot of money, and we had a little bit of extra picks over the last couple of years. For us to play our young players, to develop them, I think that's something that Coach and I have talked about, to not be afraid of. That's why you draft them. That's why you sign them. And so you have that, and you'll have a depth chart where they'll be a little bit uncomfortable about, this guy necessarily hasn't shown it, but we believe in this player. And so I think that'll be an area for us to kind of maybe grow on and, I don't want to say improve because we had good players at those positions, but, that's exciting, I think, in a lot of ways.
So he's all over the place in that one, right? So he wants Nick it's okay to play some of the younger players, right? Okay. But then he starts talking about how it's going to be hard to do that because we have a lot of high-priced players, which goes back to my Alshon Jeffrey theory a few years ago that he may have been playing just because of the salary. Also, Jason Peters, who could not stay healthy past the first quarter in any game. And you had guys that you drafted to be potential future replacements, but he was going to keep on playing them, which I thought was a disaster. And then also Dillard at one point, who was not as good as Jordan Mailata, but he was still starting at left tackle because you used the first-round pick on him, right? Sometimes it's, no, see, look, I'm right. Hold on. Let's see how this guy plays out. And then it gets back to the young players thing again and having uncomfortable conversations because some guys haven't played well yet, but we got to see what they can have. So what is that, Nakobe Dean? Right? Because it's not like he's necessarily played all that well, but you got to try to see if you got something out of him. So he's talking about that, and then he moves on to Nolan Smith specifically. Take a listen.
I think that goes back to the point about some younger players and kind of in retrospect, just seeing him certainly in the playoff game, one of the guys who played well in the playoff game, maybe giving him a little bit more time during the year and experience. We talked about that. He's got all the right tools in his body. He's got the right mentality. And at the same time, he's got to go out and show it.
My only response to that is, when was he going to play, Howie? Because don't forget, Derek Barnett was on this team at one point. Whether you liked Barnett or not, he was on the team still with Josh Sweat. Obviously, Brandon Graham was a rotational guy with Hassan Reddick. You had all those guys in the middle of the field. And he's kind of an in-betweener. You didn't know if he's playing linebacker. You don't know if he's playing edge rusher. And I wanted Nolan Smith to play more as well, but I also understood, I didn't get so angry when I would see the snap count and he would only play 15 snaps because who was he playing over at this point in his career? Now, he did get better toward the end of the regular season, as Howie Roseman mentioned, and so he'll probably have more of a role next year. But, all right. So here's now Nick Sirianni talking about his usage of young players And it's interesting. It doesn't seem like they're necessarily on the same page.
My philosophy has always been play the best, the guys that are going to help you win the game every week, regardless of whether you talk about scheme, whether you talk about players. You're trying to do whatever you can do to win the game, because that's the bottom line, is to win football games. And so whoever gives us that best chance to win a football game, that's what we'll do. Young, old, middle, it doesn't matter. We're going to do what we need to do. I owe that to our team, and our coaches, and our players, and our fans to play the best player. That's going to help us win that week. And so we don't care who that is.
Now, as much as Nick Sirianni has soured on me, like, he's not wrong in saying that. Howie's basically saying, yeah, you got to play the young guys, Nick. It's almost like we were at the Doc Rivers conversation. I saw a great tweet, I think it was from Hoops Hype, that if Doc was still here, Ricky Council wouldn't have even made a debut yet, right? But can you blame Nick Sirianni for maybe not trusting a younger player just yet and wanting to play some of his vets? That's something I'm not going to be critical of.
No, I think the one piece of criticism there was probably the rotation and whether or not they could have rotated him in more. That might have saved a little bit of Josh Sweat later on in the season.
Well, right. That was a big deal. Those guys were cooked.
Right. That was the one thing where I took away from last season in terms of what they played, young guys. The way I listen to this, the Nolan Smith thing, like for him specifically with the way Nolan Smith played, I know it's not what he's asked, but coming a couple minutes after the conversation about Hassan Reddick, and him talking about, we have to be thin at some places where it's young guys we haven't proven. To me, I start, trying to...
That's your defensive line right there.
I start trying to, connect the dots on things. And, he mentioned in the presser how much he would hate to see Kelsey and Cox in different uniforms. He also talks about sometimes you have to go into a season where it seems like you don't have experience there, be comfortable with the young player, with who you have. And, by the way, he singled out praise of Nolan Smith. To me, I started, and, this is what we do. We overanalyze what exactly they say.
We're listening to a press conference and reacting to it.
All those pieces adding up, I say, yep, I think he has already in his mind made up the fact that, I spent a first-round pick on Nolan Smith last year.
He's got to play.
His ceiling is Hassan Reddick. Well, guess what? We're gonna go find out.
Right, and so you remember the press conference after the season ended, he spoke glowingly of Nakobe Dean, right? Like, he's got it. They want to give these younger players a chance, and part of it is also because you use high draft capital. Now, that's what you probably should do. That's what the best teams do, is they continue to replenish their team via the draft. But you also, like, the best GMs or best leaders in anything, once they realize they made a mistake, it's moving on quickly enough, which, by the way, we credited Howie Roseman for the Carson Wentz situation. Carson Wentz gets the big contract, and they eventually moved on from it, and they realized what they made was a mistake, and they moved on, and it's worked out for the Eagles so far. But now it's all of a sudden the messaging is all over the place. But I don't blame Sirianni for going, hey, he's not ready yet. I'm going to play my vets. Or this guy might be better than that vet that's getting paid a lot of money. We're going to have that guy play instead. But I don't know. That's the hard. It's a hard spot. Knowing how Howie Roseman handles himself sometimes, it's a hard spot. Everybody wanted James Bradbury benched, right? He probably deserved to be benched. Were they about to bench a guy they paid a lot of money during the offseason in a playoff game to give Keely Ringo a shot? No. We'll see what they end up doing. Oh, by the way, James Bradbury's part of the plans, according to Howie. All right. That's bogus.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. He's not going to be. I can't actually see him coming back to Philadelphia.
He's a part of the plans while he's under contract.
Right, until he gets traded or gets released.
And then also them talking about the salary cap, the extra space at the salary cap next year. I was like, feeling where that investment's going. When he says you don't just, you win $5, you don't just throw that away.
Yeah, you might. Let's go to Scott in Wynwood. Scott, you're on the Fanatic.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling,
Before I get into Serriani, I would mention A.J. Dillon. This guy would be a very nice fit for the a running back position. Big guy. I think he's 26 at this point, and he wouldn't be overly expensive.
No, he's not going to cost you a lot of money. It's just it's what do they want out of him? He's not really a guy that catches the ball to the backfield all that well, and that's that's what the Eagles look for in running backs at this point.
Well, you already have the guy in Swift who can just kill it. If you look at his tape out of Georgia, he absolutely was a beast catching the ball. He was unstoppable. But they needed a big back. They didn't have one, and they need one.
Well, they believe that Kenneth Gainwell could be a bit of a bruiser at times, Scott.
Okay, all right. But getting out to Serriani, so he was brought in to be the offensive mind. That didn't work out. He gave up play calling, and eventually he's whittled down to being the cultural leader, the team leader, the leader of men. And then if you take a look at what occurs, he goes out and he yells at fans. So I think it was a KC game.
Yeah, the Chiefs game.
As a player, you're watching that, and not to yell at a fan. You've grown up being taught not to react to fans. And you're watching your head coach, who's the leader, yelling at fans. Then he gets up yesterday and says, I hired Kellen Moore. Now, he didn't hire Kellen Moore.
No, he didn't.
But his ego dictates that I hired Kellen Moore. And then if you listen to Howie, he talks about playing young players. So now Howie's having to get involved in the coach's decision. And none of this adds up to, me feeling confident in this guy's leadership ability.
I don't know what Nick Sirianni does at this point. Like he's going to be, like you said, he's now just the cultural leader at this point.
Well, I know what he's supposed to do, and based on what I'm watching, unless I'm seeing it wrong, he's not doing that well.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's why everything fell under his nose, and thanks for the call, Scott. I mean, his coaching, no matter what is actually his job, right? Remember, his responsibility last year is to be the head coach of the football team, but it's also to come up with the game plan offensively, and those game plans were horrible. And so now he's taking a step back. He didn't hire Kellen Moore. Like, let's be honest. Howie Roseman said, you want Kellen Moore, and Nick probably said, yes, sir, so he could keep his job, because that's what it all came down to. That was my initial rant, was that he's only here because he said yes, sir, to Howie Roseman for Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. So what is it that Nick Sirianni does now? He's going to be the guy that runs the locker room, make sure everything's up to speed, make sure everything's on time, make sure communication's good. And I don't have a problem with that. Don't hear me out. I don't have a problem with having the CEO type coach. My problem is I don't know if this guy can do it. All of this stuff that happened, once more, you don't go from 10-1 to 11-6 because of bad linebacker. Maybe had an impact. But it's everything that also, all the nonsense, all the issues that went on with this team from not a on-the-field play element. All the drama. This all fell under his watch. And so now he's going to focus on just that to make sure it's okay. Well, you got a lot of work to do. Because before you know it, Ray said it great yesterday. Once a free agent signs elsewhere, you know that something's going to be said about Philadelphia. We're going to get more information. It's terrible right now.
I can't wait. I'm salivating for it. I can't wait. We're going to get it. Someone's going on a podcast. Someone's going on. It's going to happen sooner than you think, where someone's going to say something, and we're going to have to sift through it. Oh, what's probably true here, what's not, where's, the line of what they're actually saying, what does it value? But, hey, man, Sirianni got an A.
Yeah,
so
he got an A in the end.
All is fine.
And a lot of Eagles fans are pointing that out. See, you guys are wrong in the media. Look, he got an A. He's fine. He's fine. He got an A. That's great, man. Like, if my boss let me do whatever the hell I wanted, even though things weren't going well, I would like that boss too. Leave me alone, right? Like, anyways. All right. So here's the deal. Jeff McLane was originally scheduled to come on at 11:30. He'll be joining us coming up at 12:30. He's in Indianapolis. He has a story out there about Hassan Reddick, how multiple teams have been calling. Ray, you sent me something during the break. It's from Josina Anderson, right? Josina Anderson reporting that several teams have expressed interest in trading for Eagles linebacker Hassan Reddick. Jeff McLane put out a story about that this morning, so we'll talk to Jeff about Hassan Reddick, his takeaways from the press conference yesterday, and all the other stuff that continues to come out of the locker room, continues to come out of NovaCare. Not they can fix all this stuff over the offseason. I mean, Jeff's been covering football for a long time, covering this team for a long time. He knows good culture. He knows bad culture. So we'll see, can Nick Sirianni get the good culture back inside the Eagles locker room? So we'll talk to Jeff coming up next. But also, before we get to Jeff, I'm going to tell you about something awesome that took place in Florida over the weekend. I don't know if it's truly awesome or if it's just hilarious at this point, but I want to have some fun with it from our own perspective. All right? Over the weekend in Florida, they held the Florida Man competition. So I will tell you what that meant, what the Florida Man competition was, but I'm sure you can already come up with a couple of answers yourself. I want to do something later on the show after we speak with Jeff. I want to come up with the Philadelphia Man competition. So I'll explain what happened in the Florida Man competition so that you can get an idea of what kind of games you could play. But we'll create a Philadelphia Man competition, Ray. Are you excited for that?
Excited's the word.
Hey, it's Combine Week.
It is.
It's So why wouldn't you do it the week of the Combine? It's genius that they did that. And we should do it here in Philadelphia. So I'll tell you more about that. Would love to hear from you at 610-632-0975. Your biggest takeaways from the press conference yesterday. It basically reiterated what I was thinking. I don't feel great about the culture and the team going into the next season already. I can't believe that on February of 2024, I'm already worried about next season, and it has nothing to do with the talent on the team. It has everything to do with the leadership of the head coach. Am I crazy for already going that far in February? Probably. You can tell me. I would love to hear from you. I'm Andrew Salchunas, The Midday Show, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
more with Andrew Salchunas on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
12:19, 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. 12 o'clock hour brought to us by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirst.hvac.com. We have Jeff McLane joining us from Indianapolis in about 10 minutes. He'll be joining us at 12:30 to talk about everything that's going on at the Combine and, of course, the press conference that took place yesterday. He also had a story in the Inquirer this morning about how multiple teams have been contacting the Eagles now about the availability of Hassan Reddick. So interested to see what Jeff's feeling is on Reddick and whether or not there is a chance that he's back here in Philadelphia, because it kind of seems like he's not back here. If you can, play me one more time. Howie Roseman was asked about Hassan Reddick yesterday, and he gave an answer where you kind of have to read between the lines, but he never really said anything that makes you think he'll be back.
Hassan, obviously, unbelievable player for the Philadelphia Eagles. Local kid, great success story. Camden, Temple, Philly. Love having Hassan. I think that, anything that you're trying to do, you're trying to blend, obviously, what you're trying to do this year and how you're going to look in the future. And I think that's the hardest job. But certainly, don't want to get into any specifics with any conversations with players, but have tremendous respect for the player and the person.
Yeah, I mean, he refused to even answer that question. He just gave him his flowers and said he's really good and great story. And the thing that he said that was interesting was you have to try to balance the now and the future. And the question is Hassan Reddick in their future plans? And it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Yeah.
Unless it's for a very great deal, which, if you're Hassan Reddick, go get that money, man.
That part of the conversation is what steered me away. And also the way he said, love having him. It was like one of those, you ever have someone around that you're like, yeah,
he's good to have around here.
Yeah. It's like if I show up at, to dinner when my roommate's out with his girlfriend, it's like, oh, yeah, we love having him here right now. It's like, not really. They don't really want you here right now.
Even though, you should probably love Hassan Reddick.
You should.
Because he's been a very impactful player for your team.
I mean, I'll just keep saying it. It's the dumbest thing in the world to look at a defense that is not filled with a lot of talent and to take away its greatest talent seems like a problem. Seems like a poor decision on your part, but it does seem like the reality we're headed down.
Right, and then he'll say, well, if we get him off the books, we could probably get two players that could hopefully be as impactful as Hassan Reddick for less money.
That's right.
And then allocate the money somewhere else in an area of need that might be more important to the new scheme of Vic Fangio, which could be safety or it could be linebacker, and nobody's going to, I think, be terribly disappointed if that's the case. I just like Hassan Reddick, and I think he's a very talented player.
Yeah, I like having one of the best pass rushers in football.
It's nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I prefer that to not having that.
Yeah.
I know it's a bold take. I know it's wild of me to say, but I'll spend the money for a great pass rusher versus fill in the blank.
Yeah, but then, oh my God, he'll be the dreaded 32, 33 years old when it's all said and done, right? He's ancient. Nice win for the Flyers last night. Beat the Lightning 6-2. Weird moment at the center yesterday. The lights go out.
Yes.
Yesterday was a crazy day because you had the Sixers. It was Sixers Celtics big screen for me, and then Flyers Lightning on the laptop. And the Flyers get the early lead. They're up 1-0 in the first period, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, the lights are out. And then they came back on. The Flyers put up a 5 spot in the third period and win 6-2. It was a good win for the Flyers yesterday. Against a good Lightning team. Now, speaking of the Lightning, Tampa Bay Lightning in Florida.
Wow.
Great trains.
Wow.
So I want to have some fun with it. Jeff McLane will join us momentarily. So over the weekend in St. Augustine, Florida, they held the inaugural Florida Man Games. Now, if you've ever read a wild story, half the time it's based out of Florida, to the point where there's now like YouTube channels of Florida Man, right? Like that's pretty much what it is. So you want to talk about playing into the bit? The state of Florida played into the bit, and they created a Florida Man Games. And one of the games was called Eat the Butt.
Hold up.
It was eating the pork butt platter in the fastest time. Instead of like a pie eating contest.
Ah.
Yeah, it was about, where were you going?
I was just curious where you were going.
It was basically an eating competition of
it is Florida.
Of a pork platter.
I don't know what they're allowed to do out in public there. So I was just curious.
Weaponized pool noodle mud duel, which I don't think that has really anything to do with Florida, but the evading arrest obstacle course is just awesome that they did that. The evading arrest obstacle course, they had actual police officers chasing them. And what? That was one of the games in the inaugural Florida Man competitions. The evading arrest obstacle course. They did a Category 5 cash grab. You know those machines where the cash is flying?
Yeah.
They upped up the speeds of the winds because you're, Florida.
Hurricane, yeah.
A Cadillac converter, 2 bikes, and a handful of copper pipes race against time. So you can't drop that stuff. Probably also another evading arrest kind of challenge. They did a Florida sumo wrestling competition where you were in the middle of the pool tube. And you had a pitcher of beer. And the guy to lose all of his beer first loses.
Oh.
If you are, but you're fighting.
I actually might look into that one.
So, like, Jen and I did the sumo wrestle at Fan Fest. We did the inflatable sumo suits.
I do recall.
Now, imagine that, but instead of the sumo suit, it's just the pool tube that goes around you that you would see like a lazy river.
Right.
You're at a water park.
Love a good lazy river.
And you had a pitcher of beer. And if you were able to keep the beer in your pitcher, you won.
I like that.
There was also a mullet competition. So
of course. Duh. I mean, that was a given.
So here's what I want to do.
There was no whose truck engine sounds the loudest?
No. I mean, so apparently there were many more games created that the guy who ran the competition couldn't really run with because like drugs were involved.
Yeah, that's I mean the evading arrest one for me it kind of felt like that we were already just stepping over a line on that one.
But it was, the guy had to get a permit. Like it was an event. Like,
I'm sure. Sounds like
they were
carnival.
competing on a stage, and there were people behind like railings watching, and everybody was allowed to drink beer. You were able to buy beer, like
Florida.
It's actually pretty awesome. So what I want to do is I want to come up with the Philadelphia Man competition. Now we have to, in reason, once more, they couldn't do all the competitions that the guy created because of legality purposes. But we have to come up with some Philadelphia Man games. And I would love, like, again, it's playing into the bit. So I'd love for people to give some answers on social media or on the phones at 610-632-0975. Now, the best part of all of this, there was a guy that was interviewed at the event. His name was James Gordon. He won the Eat the Butt competition. So congratulations to James Gordon on all your life successes.
Yes, best butt eater.
He was asked about his triumph. And he said, quote, "I've lived in Florida my whole life. They're calling these events. I'm calling this a bleeping Tuesday afternoon." A great line.
It is a great line.
Just a great line.
It's a concerning line. It's a very concerning line.
But that's the inaugural Florida Man games that took place over this weekend. So come up with some Philadelphia Man games. And maybe we'll have it at FanFest. We're always looking for ideas to add to FanFest. So what if we did a Philadelphia Man competition?
Yeah, you
good.
pitch that one.
Right.
I'll just stand in the back of the room and
come
just
up with a couple
watch
ideas.
as it happens.
All right, I have to interview Jeff McLane, so you come up with a couple ideas. All right, put yourself in dirty waters. All right, before we get to Jeff McLane, your lineup for today's spring training action for the Phillies. For all of you who may have been reading too much into spring training lineups, well, Kyle Schwarber's back in the leadoff spot. So a couple of the guys will be playing in their first games today in spring training, like Bryce Harper. And Harper will be at first base. So something to be able to pay attention to during the spring training is how much better, even though he was pretty good at it last year, if we're being honest. But your lineup is Schwarber, Real Muto in the 2-hole, which has been my dream ever since he signed here, but that's never the way it goes. Harper batting third, which I appreciate. I want my best hitter hitting third. I like the old school approach, not hitting fourth. Castellanos cleanup, Bohm fifth, Whit Merrifield sixth, Edmundo Sosa at short, Johan Rojas in center, Weston Wilson batting ninth, and he will be your DH. So that's your starting lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies as they continue their spring training action. Once more, I'll remind you, I know you're starting to hear a promo with my voice on it. Next week, Monday and Tuesday, I'll be broadcasting from Clearwater, Florida, at Baycare Ballpark, which is the home of your Philadelphia Phillies down in Clearwater. And I'll be speaking with some players. I'll be speaking with some of the coaching staff and some of the people that cover the team that are down there, covering the Phillies for the entirety of the spring. So we'll have a lot of interviews set. We'll be talking a lot of Phillies baseball, basically 8 hours of Phillies coverage Monday and Tuesday. I can't wait for it. I'll probably be checking in with some of the other shows while I'm down there as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun in Clearwater and a lot of great Phillies coverage because this is a season. Even though last year ended in sheer disappointment losing the NLCS, it's another World Series or bust conversation kind of year. So we'll be doing that starting on Monday and Tuesday when I'll be down in Clearwater. But now we're going to go to Indianapolis on the Comcast Business Hotline from the Inquirer, Inquirer.com. Covers the Eagles tremendously on a daily basis. That, of course, is Jeff McLane. Jeff, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. First, I want to start with the story that you had out this morning on the Inquirer. I know Howie Roseman was asked about Hassan Reddick yesterday. Based off of your feeling, is Hassan Reddick going to be on the Eagles next year?
She's gone ahead. I'm like 50-50 on it because I feel like, this is a guy who's given the freedom to seek a trade. And, as I reported in the story, teams have reached out to the Eagles. They've had conversations or at least they've at least fielded calls for Reddick, which is no surprise. And then I think that's why, the market's going to dictate ultimately whether, Hassan stays or goes. If he gets close to the price that he wants to be paid and, he can, and because that's a part of this equation here, it's like he wants a new deal. He's got 1 year left in his deal, but he wants a contract that reflects what he thinks is his value. If he can get that on the open market and the Eagles don't think that number is right for them, then he's going to walk. And on top of that, they have to get draft compensation in return. So that's a whole part of, the whole part of the negotiations here. But I also feel like the Eagles don't really have an obvious answer if he does walk away.
Well, I was about to ask you, what keeps them from – obviously they don't want to make him the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. I know that's not what the Eagles do. But what would keep them from not trying to work out an extension with them?
I get the market. Again, if teams feel like it's, that he's going to be worth this number and they don't think they can afford that number. I mean, look, again, they have cap room. The 14% increase in the cap gives them more leeway to maybe bring him back, but it also gives other teams perhaps more room to go after someone like Hassan Reddick. And this is a guy that has double-digit sacks over the last 4 years. Only 3 players have as many sacks over that span. I do feel like the league, and I think the Eagles are going to maybe this is factoring into their evaluation here, that they saw what happened the last time Hassan was on the open market, and they got him for that cost-effective deal, which is 3 years over $45 million. That's cheap.
Right.
It was cheap at the time for I thought his production. But there are some knocks against Hassan. He's not as big, and that he can maybe only work in certain schemes, especially ones that need a bigger end to kind of set the edge against the run. I don't think with Vic Fangio and the new scheme that he's bringing in, it's not significantly different than what they've had here in the last 3 years, and he should find a way to make it work. I mean, Hassan can get to the quarterback. Hassan can make explosive type plays. He forced 5 fumbles, NFL leading 5 fumbles just 2 years ago. He didn't have as many this year, and I think maybe some of that had to do with all the overall defensive, issues. But there were times where he was quiet, right? And I think maybe the Eagles just don't think that he's worth what he thinks he's worth.
Oh, it's interesting. Yesterday during the press conference, Howie also talked about this offseason and how he's excited to be aggressive. Now, we all know Howie Rosen doesn't sit on his hands, right? He's always involved with every player that seems to be available. But, Jeff, how aggressive do you think Howie will be this offseason? You mentioned the cap space. There's obviously draft picks that they can move around. There's going to be players coming off the books. Is this an offseason where he might still swing for the fences and try to keep the Super Bowl window open for this upcoming season?
I mean, I don't think he's going to, quote unquote, swing for the fences. Again, he has some space to do stuff. Again, so if Reddick doesn't come back, you have an immediate need at edge rusher. I don't think you can put Nolan Smith into that spot. And there are going to be there are going to be edge rushers out there that you can get. I mean, I just listened to former Eagles executive Joe Douglas, who's now the GM with the Jets, say that Bryce Huff is not going to be franchise tag. He's probably going to hit the market. So like that's a quality guy that you could see in a 3-4 scheme that the Eagles may be willing to spend for. I do sense that and how we talked about how the resources have been devoted to the offensive side over the last 3 years, and maybe he needs to kind of do that more on the defensive side. So that suggests to me that he's going to target some pretty specific free agents, maybe not the top of the market guys, but guys that are in that 26, 27-year-old range, maybe second tier. A little bit what we saw when he came back to power in 2016, and he signed, at safety, he signed Rodney McLeod. At guard, he signed Brandon Brooks. Like maybe that type of level player where they're getting good deals, but not breaking the bank.
We're speaking to Jeff McLane on the Comcast Business Hotline. Howie was not the only one who spoke yesterday. Nick Sirianni spoke as well, and he was asked more about some of the things that went wrong, and he couldn't necessarily give a total answer, but he really preached the emphasis of getting back to the core values, Jeff. I heard the term core values 1,000 times yesterday. I absolutely love it. I'll ask you, you've covered the league for a long time. You've covered the Eagles for a long time. I don't know if he lost the locker room, right? But clearly the culture shifted in a negative way, it seemed like last year, to which he's kind of admitted too, and he wants to get back to that good culture, the best culture a lot of people have ever been around just 2 years ago. Can you fix that after one season?
I don't think the culture was a major problem. The NFL player poll just came out.
Right, they were fourth
overall, and they just added new categories for head coach and team owner and nutritionist and dietitian. And Nick Sirianni got an A.
Mm-hmm.
And I've reported as much. I did a whole podcast episode on Nick, and one of them, that looked at, evaluated him and whether he'd be back or not. And one of the strengths from talking to all the players is clearly like his connection that he has with them, the relationship that he built. I do think that he talked about connection and accountability, that they could go kind of hand in hand. And maybe that's like, you're being viewed as a player coach when you allow them to get maybe away with some things, and maybe he thought maybe he allowed too much of that. I was under the impression that Nick was going to be a little tougher on the players this year. He kind of told me that. I heard from guys, and I think it maybe that was the intention, but I think his natural inclination is to not like be the heavy when it comes to holding players accountable at times. I mean, like certainly he's going to hold players accountable when it comes to scheme. There's other things that you have to deal with off the field. And so that's a delicate balancing act for a head coach. It's like you want them to like you, but you also want them to respect you. But clearly they respect them. They got an A. So that to me that's not the issue. There's other ways though that the culture can be affected, and some of that has to do with the leaders, and certainly it has to do a lot with the quarterback. And and Nick factors into that, but I don't really think that was the major problem with the team.
Okay, so now let's go to the quarterback, because the leadership is continuously being brought up. And I know Nick talked about it yesterday. Like he does, you can't change who you are as a person, right? Who you are is who you are, but you can try to get better at what you do. Jeff, I know you've talked about this a lot. It may be when times are tough, like Hurts hasn't been the leader that people are looking for. Like, what is one of the biggest issues that you hear most about Hurts and his leadership?
Yeah, so I mean, like again, this goes hand in hand with on-field production, right? If you're playing like you are in 2022 and at an MVP level and nearly winning the Super Bowl and going toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't really matter as much. And I think players see that, and when you're struggling, you have to kind of offset what you lack in playing ability, execution, whatever you want to call it. You have to make a little more effort with the guys. And I don't think that's Jalen's necessarily his way, and that's not always the wrong way to handle things. It's not, always wrong to handle things that way. But, again, I've done a lot of the reporting on this, and there have been specific team leaders, in amongst the players and in other positions in the organization that have said that this is something that they have identified as an issue, and they want him to improve upon. It's opening himself more to guys in the locker room. It's improving your body language on the sidelines. It's stepping up and speaking when you need to. Jalen is stoic. He can come off and maybe rub guys the wrong way because he's just kind of, inward. And, a lot of quarterbacks, are like that to some extent. The great ones, you want them to have, to some degree, this like air of mystery or coolness about them. And guys will follow those types of guys. And I think Jalen has that component. But as we've seen before, and I've seen many years when the Eagles aren't doing well, it's like when things aren't going well, there's a lot of areas that you can point the finger at, and quarterback certainly is paramount among those who get put further under the microscope, and that's what's happened here with Jalen. And maybe it's something at the age of 25 that he can just slightly tinker with and work on, improve upon. And then, ultimately that'll help his performance on the field. And that's the bottom line. That's what the people with the Eagles want to see.
Now, before I let you go, what are some of the other highlights from the Combine? I know players are speaking today. I saw Jeremiah Trotter Jr. spoke today. Some highlights you can give us from Indy, and who are some of the players you're going to be keeping a close eye on, even though it's, cone drills and 40-yard dashes?
Yeah, I mean, I come here to talk to the coaches and the coach, the GM, the Eagles people. I want to meet, obviously Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore and work more on that kind of stuff. To me, it's like free agency for the draft. That's what the team, obviously the scouting department, they're looking at the players, they're doing the evaluations, they're having the interviews with them every night, and the coaches are involved in that too. But in terms of like Howie and Nick, they're looking more now the free agency and what guys they want to retain. What are possible players they want to bring back, and then they'll get to the draft is happening at the same time. But anyway, so that's kind of what more I'm fixated on is like what they're going to do in terms of their own guys. They have to figure out what Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox are indeed retiring, and then what they have to do to replace both those guys. And then, but in terms of the Combine, we don't even get in the field to watch. We watch it. If I do watch, and I don't typically watch it. We're just like you guys at home watching on TV.
Right. Okay. Well, Jeff, listen, man, I enjoy always having you on. Thank you for coming on, and make sure whenever you do come back, have a safe trip. All right.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Jeff McLane from the Inquirer, Inquirer.com. Yeah. So he's not locked into the cone drills, except on TV like us football guys here in Philadelphia, Ray.
Yeah. A little bit more of a relationship guy on that one.
Yeah. Now, all right. So here's what we got. You put an interesting note on the board.
Tyrone passing that nugget along.
Thank you, Tyrone, about this player survey. So Jeff talked about the A grade that Nick Sirianni got. Well, we have a little interesting nugget regarding the player survey that I will give to you coming up next. Also, I want to have some fun with this Philly Man games. If you're just tuning in, the Florida Man games, the inaugural Florida Man games took place over the weekend, and the competitions were exactly what you might think they are. Mullets, escaping arrest, all kinds. It's incredible. I would go to that. Would you not go to that if you're in the area? You drink beers and you watch all this stuff.
There's an intrigue factor.
Yeah, there's an intrigue factor. So what I want to do is I want to create the Philly Man games, the Philadelphia Man games. And I already got a good one on social media, but I would love to see more of your tweets or call in at 610-632-0975. On top of our Eagles conversation, give us a game to create the Philadelphia Man game. And maybe we'll have it at FanFest. I'll tell the bosses. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. I'm Andrew Salchuk. It's the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 12:51 on the Midday Show. 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. Big news coming out of the NFL, Ray. The New York Jets have granted Zach Wilson permission to seek a trade. I know that's major news in the NFL. I'm shocked. I can't believe they allowed that.
Well, the issue is the other 31 teams have to be, granted the idea of wanting to trade for Zach Wilson.
Right. God, I still can't believe it. I wonder how long it's going to take for me to forget. Because, again, it's the Jets, not the Eagles. How long is it going to take for me to forget that their team was very good and they just peed away a season because for whatever reason they thought they should try it with Zach Wilson? As a non-Jets fan, and yet I'm still offended by it. As a football fan, I'm offended by it. As a football guy,
I was waiting for you to drop the football guy thing there.
They had a very talented team. And, I get it. When you lose your starting quarterback that early on, it sucks. But it's not like they had 2 days before the trade deadline to pivot. They had a long time to try to figure out an answer. And Zach Wilson was their answer. Sticking with him. And losing. And wasting a season of a lot of very talented players.
It's not great any way you slice it.
Because here's how I'll word it. For us to be, for Eagles fans to relate more. If, God forbid, Jalen Hurts goes down week 1 this year and is done for the season, and Mariota's still the backup, and we've seen him not look good, would we be okay if the Eagles just stuck around with Mariota the entire time? Former first-round pick, first overall, first or second? No, Winston was first. Think about that for a second. If Hurts went down week 1 for the entirety of the season, offense, A.J. Brown's still here. Devontae Smith is still here. Dallas Goedert's still here. Whoever the running back is on the final year of the deal that they trade for will be here. Whatever aggressive moves Howie Roseman makes this offseason defensively, Jeff McLane even says he thinks they're going to focus more on the defense, and they just stuck with Mariota all year. We would lose our freaking minds.
Well, it depends. How does Mariota play?
I would imagine he's not playing well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'd be upset. We'd be quite upset. Luckily, they've got way more to be upset about there in New York. The Jets, as an organization, frustrate them year after year.
Yeah, that's true.
When I talk about cultures, that's not exactly one that I'm pegging as a winner.
Speaking of organization and culture, Tyrone Johnson provided us with a nice little nugget about this player poll that came out. So the NFL Players Association, every year they put out a poll. And they grade the different organizations. And this year, let me go through the grades for you. This year, the Eagles' treatment of families graded out as a C. I don't know what that, I don't understand. What is it, tickets? I'm just trying to figure out what that could be.
Yeah, it could be tickets, maybe travel to games, how much a suite costs.
Yeah.
I don't.
Food service was an A, weight room A-, strength coaches A-, training room B+, training staff A-, locker room B-, travel C. The Eagles came in 4th out of the 32 teams. They jumped up from 14th last year to 4th, so they had a great year. There were 3 new categories. Owner, which got an A, nutritionist and dietitian got a B, and head coach got an A. Now, a lot of people are jumping on the evil media because I didn't want Nick Sirianni back. And so now it's oh, wow, you guys make it seem like Nick Sirianni is the worst head coach, and look at the players that played for him. They grade him as an A, which I did find interesting. I'm like, all right, wow, they must really like the guy, right? But Tyrone Johnson gave us a nice little nugget. This survey, they didn't ask the players yesterday for their grades. They didn't ask the players last week. Ray, they didn't even ask the players in 2024. The survey data was gathered from August to November of 2023. So let's think back a little bit. Training camp. It is pretty well known that the Eagles run one of the lightest camps, which I don't think is the worst idea. You're trying to maintain good health, and let's face it, the Eagles even though the collapse did happen, we're still one of the healthier teams in the NFL. What do you have the exact dates? I just saw that you put it up. What were the exact dates?
The survey began August 27th and concluded November 16th.
All right. So what was
November 16th just so happens to be 4 days before the Eagles beat the Chiefs.
Okay. So the Eagles at that point were 8-1, right? Because the Chiefs was 9 and then Bills was 10. And then after that was the collapse. So the Eagles were 8-1 when the survey concluded. And August 27th was still, 2 weeks before the start of the regular season, I would guess? So you add in camp, where these guys aren't working anymore, right? Regular season, when you're 8-1, which is exactly where you were last year, the year you go to the Super Bowl. So why would you be critical of stuff that's going on inside your building? I would be fascinated to see what those grades would be if you did, what was the final date? November what?
16th.
What if you did November 17th to February 28th? I'm sure facility would still be great. I'm sure all that stuff would still be good. But would Nick Sirianni still grade out with an A grade?
Would Jeffrey Lurie still grade out with the A grade? Remember, Jeff McLane gave us the information that Lurie was poking around
that's a good
in
point,
football
yeah.
business.
That's a good point.
They started to see him a little bit more. It wasn't just that's the name check. That's the guy that's now asking you questions while you're trying to enjoy your lunch.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's interesting. All right, so I know, nice little nugget. I appreciate Tyrone for giving us that. All right, before I get back to the Eagles topic, so I want to have some fun with this. You can climb in at 610-632-0975, or you could just send in a tweet with your answer. So over the past weekend, it was the inaugural Florida Man games. It took place in St. Augustine, Florida. So I want to have some fun with the Philadelphia Man games, right? Do you have a game in mind, Ray?
Yes.
Okay.
The Broad Street Line beer competition.
Okay. So
how many beers can you house from the beginning of it to the end of the Broad Street Line?
That is a tremendous game idea.
Yes.
Now, in case
don't do it because it's against the rules. But of course,
unless they get a permit for it.
Right.
Because again, let me make this clear for everyone that's just tuning in. The Florida Man games was an actual competition where they did games based on, like, if you could use your imagination of things that happen in Florida, they did those games within reason because they needed a permit. So, like, the guy who created it actually wanted drugs involved, and they were at a park.
Yeah, that's a no.
Yeah,
that's a
they couldn't do that. So there were some games that were left off the competition, and it was team sports, by the way. So it wasn't just one-on-one. Like, it wasn't one victor. It was a team. So, like, imagine you get 3 of your buddies. You and 3 of your buddies, a 4-man squad, and you're doing the Florida Man games. In case I want to do the Philadelphia Man games. So I think that's a great one. Some great responses so far in social media. And I like that Karate Mark had one that a couple of people also have given in. The busting balls competition. And not literally, but, yes. We're ball busters here in Philadelphia. So it's basically remember the old game show Yo Mama?
Mm-hmm.
Basically that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good one.
Amy checks in. You're only allowed one backup. The one backup parallel parking. Great, right? Now
a lot of people on my block would be losing.
Now we would have to do it if we're going Philly, it's got to be the middle of the street. It's got to be the middle of Broad Street.
Down in South Philly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that, I think it'd have to be middle of the street because that's going to throw everybody off. Jeff McDevitt checks in, who does a tremendous job on social media. He gets it. Backing out of a parking spot in a poorly set up Wawa parking lot without incident. You can just go down Belmont and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the worst parking lot I've ever been in. Bill checks in. Boo contest. You get a decibel meter. So the loudest booer. That's pretty good. Snowball accuracy with Santa targets. Now, here's the thing. That was a one-time thing.
Now you see, but when someone outside references it, it's a problem. But it's us. This is the Philadelphia Man games. So it's just, this is a game for us, by us. I think we could accept it.
So in that same breath, the Warehouse 27 checks in with battery throwing.
Now that's where I'm going to draw the line.
Oh, why? You're pro Santa snowballs, but not battery throwing?
Santa was drunk.
Okay. he also says fighting pro hockey players, because that's happened, and the turnstile hurdle, which is a great one.
It is a great one. It's not really specific. I feel like it's not a specific us thing.
It's not. And the turnstiles have also, they're starting to go away. Now they're starting to do the plastic boards, right?
Which is a real pain, if you're trying to jump that and someone else actually swipes and it, opens up like that, you could catch the side of the leg. Not that I have an experience with it. I'm just saying the way it opens up makes the hurdling actually a little more difficult. It's not exactly the same as what it once was in jumping a turnstile. If that thing starts to move,
right. Okay.
You're in trouble.
Now, I love this one from 2 Brown, 1 Mamba 5. Cheesesteak eating competition and create sports drama on your radio show competition. I think I'd be good at that one.
Yeah, I think you'd be good at that one. Never mind. I'm going to keep quiet in here.
Irvin Magic Johnson's checked in. The Irvin Magic Johnson, right?
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I have his notice on. I didn't see the tweet.
So I had an idea of some sort regarding this. He says horse boxing. Because there's, the horse. There was literally what was the movie called? Concrete Cowboys?
Yes.
With Idris Elba, right?
Yep.
It was about Philadelphia horse riders. You have to do something with the horses. I don't know if horse box, because you don't want to hurt the horses. And we're not doing jousting. This isn't the, what's the fair?
Renaissance?
Yeah, the Renaissance Fair. We're not doing jousting here, but we got to do something regarding horses in Philadelphia. But the one that has come up the most is the greased pole climb. That would have to be in the competition.
Absolutely.
Like it's become a thing where the Crisco is coming out before games. So the greased pole climb needs to be a part of the Philadelphia Man competition. Now the Fink goes a little bit deeper. The Twisted T dizzy back grease pole climb.
And I think that's probably where you're going to miss out on legalities of getting that one done. That one like a little bit of a stretch.
But I do like the grease pole one. And then John with a great one, the worst pronunciation of names event. That would be great too.
Alex quote tweeted you with going to Wawa getting your choice of hoagie. I would do the hoagie board competition.
How quickly you can
make your order.
That's a good one too. So I would love to get some more of your answers. The Philadelphia Man competition games, and maybe we'll have it at FanFest. Why not?
Maybe.
I don't see why somebody would have a problem with that here.
Permits pending.
610-632-0975, the number to climb in. So we've been focused heavily on the Eagles today because the press conferences took place yesterday. Both Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni speaking to the media. And I'll be honest, Nick Sirianni did not make me feel any better about how I was feeling literally just yesterday. Just yesterday, I told you that I was already worried about the 2024 Eagles. And then Nick Sirianni spoke to the media, and it was only worse for me. He's all about these core values. He doesn't have an answer yet. He literally said that he still doesn't know what went wrong. Like that's problematic to me. That they still don't know what went wrong over the last 2 months of the season when they went from 10-1 to 11-6. Just terrible. The other thing that we talked about, and we haven't dove too deep into it, is just how bad Tobias Harris is right now, dude. I don't know what you do. I know we've talked about pulling him off the bench, but I mean, it's just kind of, are we really at the stage of just counting down till the end?
I mean, I don't want to be. I'd like for him to be a contributor on a team that has something to do in the postseason. I can't really just start counting down to the end. The guy, whether he's playing well or not, like the expectation is he's going to be a part of a team in the postseason that wants to do something. I don't think we could sit here and just start counting down to the end of the days because you can't just sit him. He can't be a DNP.
Has there ever been a player that you've just been more fatigued by? Like, this is 5 years, man. 5 years of this. Now, he's a nice guy, right? So it's not like a Jonathan Papelbon because he was an a-hole, right? Like, no, like Tobias Harris is actually a good dude, except for calling Sixers fans casuals and not being and not being
specifically
not being able to read the room. That like, yeah, dude, it's been a pretty big disappointment since they signed you to the contract. If we're being honest, like I would think that you would have realized that too, Mr. Assassin Score. Well, no, I mean he's a great guy, right? But I don't like. Is there anybody you've been more fatigued by, ever, in Philadelphia sports? I will give you one answer that I can think of, and it's Jason Peters, and that's more so because of the first quarter limping
Right.
off the field every single week.
Yeah, it was over by that point. I didn't like the Arrieta signing from the beginning.
Okay.
So I was ready for that to be over.
That's another 5-year anniversary. So today was the day they signed Bryce Harper, which is also the day he dressed up in the weird underwear and was sweeping the floor.
Yes.
That was
I would say that was
that was a move.
most noteworthy thing he did as a Philly.
And he took Nick Pivetta under his wing.
Well, that worked out great for the Phils too. So real glad that both of those things worked out. Maybe the Vinny Velo experience. I was ready for that to be over
because
that felt like it was a long extended stay.
It was 6 years, wasn't it? And it was the breakout year was always coming. It didn't matter who the manager was. It didn't matter who the president of baseball operations, the GM was. Vince Velasquez, he was here 6 seasons. 6 years, dude. He pitched in 133 games. 116 of them were starts.
Yeah, it felt like that way too.
And you're right, not only because of the length of time, but also the breakout year conversation. And then toward the end, it was he might be a starter, he might not be a starter. Then he wouldn't start the season in the rotation, but would eventually end back up into the rotation. It was exhausting. And then he had the game against, the Padres, where he has 18 strikeouts. He was a better outfielder at times than he was an actual pitcher. That's a great answer, Ray.
I do think for a lot of people, the Kingery experience has gotten to that point.
Yeah, but he hasn't even been around.
Yeah, but the idea, I mean, it wasn't in your face last year, but the idea of him, I think for a lot of people, has probably been a little much. I don't think it's as in your face, so it's probably not as bad. But, I mean, I know the contract, people still, up in arms over it. It really, at the end of the day, for a team that spends as much as they do.
I don't lose sleep over Kingery.
No, I mean, I
really don't. And I'm not exhausted by Kingery. Because, I haven't seen him.
I enjoy March. March is a fun month.
Right. If he was on the team every single year, that's one thing. But, he's literally not. He's in the minors.
I'm just sad. I'm spitballing over here.
Coaches we've seen it with. Brett Brown reached that point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can beat Tobias Harris.
No, it's tough. It is tough. I'm trying to think of bad contracts
because he hasn't
that were given out.
Jake Arrieta was a bit of an a-hole too. Tobias is just there. 5 years.
And it's the crazy thing is because the contract went to completion. There's some figures I think of when I think of bad contracts, but they were moved, you maneuvered out of it, it was over.
Right.
This contract, and we dealt with his dad calling him an assassin scorer. You dealt with him calling you a casual.
Yeah, me specifically called me out.
I mean, it was about you. I mean, we can't go back and rewrite history. He was talking directly to you about you. Yeah, he might be the ultimate answer to that one.
Now, I'll ask you this question. Would somebody give the answer Embiid? Not you and I, but would somebody give that answer?
You want me to square up right now. That's what you want.
You
could feel what you were about to do to me.
You know that somebody probably has Embiid fatigue to the point of Tobias Harris, if not worse. Because somebody's going to say, well, at least Tobias is on the floor. There is Embiid fatigue.
Man, that's irritating.
It is. It's irritating.
It's irritating, but it's true for people.
Oh, I'm already. You've raised the blood pressure. I'm ready to go. 610-632. Well, let's fight.
Will there be Aaron Nola fatigue one day?
Oh, God.
I think it already was there last year.
Will there be Trey Turner fatigue?
Oh, well, God, better not be. There's 12 more years of it, or 11 more years of it. All right, the number to climb in, 610-632-0975. I'd love to get more of those answers. Or is there no answer? Is Tobias Harris, has he reached the most fatigue for you out of any player ever in Philadelphia sports? Because, man, right now, I don't think there's a better answer. There might be one at some point over time, but 5 years of just him kind of being there and never really being the right piece for any of these teams. It was a contract. What happened. They didn't get Jimmy Butler, and so they needed a max player. They didn't want to lose that slot, so they kept Tobias Harris, and it just hasn't worked out. Nice player, nice guy, just not good enough in any asset of the game in terms of what fits around Joel Embiid, or when Joel Embiid's out, he hasn't been able to carry the team. I asked for 22 a game, Ray.
You've already got me upset. Sorry, you went back to the Embiid fatigue thing. Now I'm upset again. So
I asked for
gonna start
20.
all over
I
again.
asked for 22 a game while Embiid has been out, and he's barely at 15.
You said 3 more per game. I think he heard 3 less per game.
Yeah, unbelievable. 610-632-0975. And I would love to get more answers about the Philadelphia man games because I loved what Florida did. They just went into the bit. They did a Florida man competition, and I would love to create one for Philadelphia man games. So we'll do that. Get to more of your calls as well, all right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Well, the Sixers kept it close at least
75thefanatic.com.
It is 1:20. 97.5 The Fanatic Midday Show. I'm Andrew Salchunas. 1 o'clock hour brought to us by Ferguson HVAC Lyon Conklin. Attention HVAC contractors for equipment, parts, and supplies for a heating and cooling job. Visit one of Ferguson's counter locations in Bensalem, King of Prussia, Pennsauken, or Westchester today. I'll get back to the phones in a second. I'm going to read some more of these tweets about the Philadelphia Man competition. If you're just tuning in, there was a Florida Man competition held in Florida last weekend, and I want to have some fun and create a Philadelphia Man conversation. Brendan Casey gave a good one, speaking in terms of the decibels. How about have a competition who can yell, run the ball the loudest? Because there's a difference. The boo and actually saying the words is two different competitions. So you'd have to separate them.
Yes.
It's only fair.
And I think we should do a competition where you sit in a room with a group of certain aged individuals and see who can say blitz the most over the course of a 4-quarter game.
That's a good one.
I would say maybe a rewatch of a Gannon masterclass to see if how many times someone would yell blitz at the television.
Yes.
Because I think that would also be a
blitz, run, all those.
But they wouldn't be able to know they're in the competition. You're secretly scoring them, and then you give them the win.
Okay, interesting. All right. Phil's in action. Bryce Harper, did you see the play?
I saw the tweets. I have not seen the video
great
quite
play.
yet.
Great diving play to his right. Flipped it to the pitcher. So he's already in regular season form at first base. How about Bohm? A Bohm bomb. Goes with a 2-run blast. And then Phil's already up 3-0, right?
Yeah, JT with the homer as well.
Oh, is that right? My man in the 2-hole.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I've been asking for the last 4 or 5 years now is JT Realmuto in the 2-hole. It just makes sense.
With who leading off?
Well, a traditional leadoff hitter, not Kyle Schwarber. But, you know.
Would you go righty-righty, then lefty-lefty?
Who's the other left? What, Schwarber fourth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not dropping any further than that.
Yeah, I guess.
E.
No, I guess I shouldn't do that. No, I would have him fifth.
Schwarber?
Yeah, with Castellanos fourth.
Why?
Or Bohm fourth. They going with the pop. What does it matter? He's only batting fifth once in the entire game.
He gets
I got all of you. I got all of you. Oh, he only bats the leadoff one time.
I want the guys to get on base at the top of my lineup.
All right, and then or the guy that hits home runs with guys on base. That would be nice instead of just solo shots all the time. That'd be
fine.
tremendous.
I don't necessarily need him in the leadoff spot.
Johan
Drop him
Rojas
to 5.
batting 112, and then Schwarber's batting leadoff. Get nobody on base every single time. I hate him in the leadoff spot. I'm never going to change my opinion on that. I know that they've won games in some miraculous way the last 2 years. I hate him in the leadoff spot. Absolutely hate it. I would rather him bat in the middle of the order when there's actual guys on base in front of him, not Johan Rojas.
In terms of getting on base, who does it at the highest level of the team?
Okay, great. And then somebody hits a double in the gap, and he can barely get to third because he can't run. He clogs up the. It's only February. I know he's going to bat leadoff. I should just not get exhausted.
Yeah, you should accept reality on that one.
Yeah, he's going to bat leadoff, and they'll win games. And that's all that should matter. I shouldn't complain about it at all.
Listen, of the guys on the roster, Turner to me profiles most of who I want to lead off.
Stock could be a leadoff hitter. Harper could be a leadoff hitter, even though I want him third. But, no, it's got to be Kyle Schwarber because he's more comfortable there.
Right. Also, I need Turner to have a season that doesn't resemble 4 months of suck.
Right, because part of the reason why Schwarber struggled early on, too, in the leadoff spot is because he had nobody behind him that could actually hit. Once Turner turned things around, that's when the lineup was actually going. Anyways. All right, so I have this full report card up. So the NFL Players Association, they did all the teams' report cards. The Eagles came in fourth out of 32 teams. So I have the rundown of all of these. So treatment of families came in as a C grade, which was 16th. So dead middle out of all 32 teams. Here's the explanation as to why they got a C. They provide a family room at the stadium. They are one of 11 teams that, they do not provide free daycare to children. They do provide a room for child care, but each player must supply the child care themselves. Oh, no. God forbid the $1 million athletes need to provide a nanny. The top change players feel would improve the treatment of families is upgrading the daycare offered on game day to match the offering of most teams across the league. That's fair.
And that's the thing. You get upset with it, but if everyone else is doing it and you're not, that's why you're getting the grade
So
again.
the Chargers had the worst grade because they make the players pay $50 for the first kid and $75 for the second. Which, I'm sorry, that's a penny for some of these players.
Some of them.
Yeah, okay. Even the lowest paid player is making a lot more money than you and I, Ray.
That's absolutely true.
I just,
But again, if you were somewhere else,
oh, God forbid, they don't have free child care.
well, if you're somewhere,
Talk to me.
if you were somewhere else and you come there and you're like, whoa, what's the deal here? Obviously, you're going to grade it poorly.
All right, the food cafeteria got an A, which was second in the league. The rank of overall taste was second. And the overall freshness was first. So good. I mean, look, Philadelphia's known for good food. Like, if we're being honest. Nutritionist / dietitian got a B, which was 13th. 83% of players feel like they get an individualized plan.
The other 17% were just grouped together.
What, like 17% like a vegan, and there weren't as many vegan options? Like, is that what are we doing here?
Or you came here too late and you don't feel like it was enough tailored to you?
Right, I guess.
I don't know.
The locker room had a B-. 85% of players feel like the locker room is big enough, which was 19th overall.
Big enough.
God. 90% of players feel like they have enough room in their individual lockers. That was 14th overall. Players feel that the locker room needs a renovation. Man, must be nice.
The one thing I'll say, though, is like if you look at how much Lurie's making off of this team, you could probably look around and say justifiably, yeah,
Well, ownership got an A.
It did.
Club owner Jeffrey Lurie receives a rating of 9.4 out of 10, which was 7th overall from Eagles players when considering his willingness to invest in the facility.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the players asking for more investment is probably them looking at, oh, you mean you guys had another record year in terms of making money in the NFL? And you're charging me for this, or I'm not getting this that's offered somewhere else? You're what valued organization in the NFL?
Okay.
Like, I think some of this, as much as the players are making a lot of money, they're the ones playing the game. There's people that are not playing the game that are making a lot of money off this as well.
Now, weight room got an A-. They were 9th overall. The players feel they have high-quality equipment in their weight room. Enough high-quality equipment. Like, what are you missing? What could you possibly be missing? A Stairmaster?
Yeah, listen, if you're asking me what you're missing in a weight room, you're missing a lot of what I do with my time. The idea that I would have an idea what you're missing to be, best at lifting weights, anyone that's ever taken a look at me has been not ever asked me for advice on what a gym needs or doesn't need.
You look swole.
Yeah.
This one's the one that made me laugh.
Sweatshirt.
This one's the one that made me laugh the most. The team travel. What was the Eagles? What was their home and away record this year? This is important because they were 5-4 on the road, 6-2 at home. 75% of the players feel like they have a comfortable amount of personal space during flights, which was 21st overall, Ray. So they need to improve that.
I wonder how they felt when Hurts got the private plane too. I don't know. Did that take away? Would that have made it? Because that was after November.
They did that because he was ill.
Well, absolutely. You want him on that private plane, but does that make things better? You could all, maybe they're like, look, they're taking care of us. Could the grade have been improved?
Yeah, I guess they could have been.
That was one of the good in terms of things they did as an organization in December was protect player safety.
Yeah, and by the way, in case people were wondering, the survey was done between August and November, so it wasn't even in December or January or February when the collapse was happening.
Yeah, you think you're cramped in now. Just wait till you have to fly home after a loss.
Yeah, oh, God.
After a Monday night in Seattle. You think that plane was crammed then?
All right, let's get back to the phones before I give you some of these Philadelphia Man game entries. Let's go to Chris and Brigantine. What up, Chris?
Hey, Andrew, how you feeling, my man?
I'm good. How are you? I was just in the Brigantine last weekend.
That's good. Did you go to church?
No, I was just picking up my son because I was away for a week.
Yeah. How was it? You relaxed?
Yeah,
Come back relaxed?
Oh, yeah. I feel refreshed. Still, believe it or not, I've made it to Wednesday. I'm still refreshed.
Beautiful. Well, that's all right. But the Eagles, that'll take that right out of you the way it sounds.
Oh, yeah, of course. But at least I get to talk about it for a living. I'm not going to complain too much. But, yeah, I mean, Nick Sirianni and the core values, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, he's a young guy, man. He's got to learn just like all the other ones, you know.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
I just hope he can bounce back.
Let's talk Flyers. Let's talk Flyers, though, because guess what?
That was a nice win last night.
They made the right move. They brought Brink back. I just told my
Bobby
wife
Brink.
yesterday, they got to bring this. We're on the brink now. Bring him back.
Nice goal yesterday.
Another move is they got like a crazy spirit with them. You know, you see, like, the Phillies had that music they had. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Ray has the song. Ray has the song ready for you.
Yeah.
This is the Flyers song, their victory song.
Let me hear it.
Oh, you're probably bobbing your head right now, aren't you, Chris?
Yeah, it's like London Tech, isn't it?
Sure.
British London Tech, ain't it?
I'll take your word for it. Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah,
that was a good win yesterday for the orange and black, man. 6-2 over the Lightning. That Forrester goal was nasty.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was. You know, Tampa just played 2 tough games and they won. That were big wins for them before that on the road.
Oh, it's been fun, man. Flyers a playoff team, Chris. Appreciate the call. They're a playoff team. As long as it continues to go in this right direction, which, let's see.
We'll see.
I wonder.
Backup goaltending will be interesting.
Yeah, that was
you don't have
the Penguins game was a rough. Cal Peterson with the 7 goals allowed. That's
not ideal. But scoring 6 goals in back-to-back games, now
I like that.
That's nice. You would think you'd win
that.
both of those games.
Yeah, look. Hey, what are you gonna do?
When they inevitably sell off pieces.
That's gonna be an interesting day. When is the actual date for the trade deadline? Let's see here. NHL trade deadline is March 8th, so a little over a week away. If the Flyers are sellers, and not like selling. When the Flyers are sellers, and it's not going to be, they're not going to be trading away like these, they're up and coming players, but they're going to probably move. Obviously, like the Lawton thing's been talked about a lot. I know we got the A on the sweater, but that's been something that's been talked about a lot. Ray's just going straight up when the Flyers are sellers. I wonder how people are going to react. And now there's multiple areas of people. There are the Flyers diehards that are there every single night, have been every single night, even during the awful year like last year, that I wonder they're either upset because they want them to buy in and try to make a playoff run, or they're happy because they're sticking to the rebuild. For me, I'm all about the rebuild, all right? Obviously, I was talking to somebody not that long ago around these parts that was saying, yeah, this is how you do a rebuild, not losing on purpose. He's taking jabs because of my Sixers, the tank, 10-win season, right? Flyers are in the beginning of a rebuild, and they're a playoff team. They're playing better than they were last year. Maybe Chuck Fletcher was just that bad. But I'm still cool with keeping the plan. Like the standard's the standard. Keep the main thing, man. It's still a rebuild. And if you can sell off some pieces that aren't going to be here for the long run, and it's going to make your team even better for the long run, you got to still do it. Even though it's been a very fun season this year.
Yeah, but, I mean, listen, they're still in position right now. I mentioned the backup goaltending. TK, whatever it ends up being, deal with him, and whether he's banged up and what happens in that regard. I'd be worried about, how the team ends up keeping this going. Drysdale being banged up. Like, yeah, it's nice where they're sitting. It's nice they won again last night. Don't deviate from the plan. I know. And they're not going to, they're not going to sell off young talent. It's not going to be like what Ed Snyder was doing at the end. Yeah, they're not going to buy.
No.
But it's okay to admit that, Walker being unrestricted free agent coming up, like if that's someone you want to move off of. Like,
I feel bad because I'm sure there's also a lot of people that haven't been following it day to day that are going, oh, wow, the Flyers are good. Let me watch the trade deadline special, right? And they're going to see that the Flyers are going to end up being sellers, and there will be people that are going to be very upset with the organization. Now, if you've been paying attention, you would have known that they were going to be sellers at the deadline, but not everybody is, right? It's like that with every sport. Now everybody's watching 162 Phillies games. They wait until the playoffs to get in. Same with the Sixers this year specifically, I would say. especially after Joel Embiid's injury, right? Like, people probably jumped on board when Embiid dropped 70. Oh, man, I got to start watching. Because a lot of people probably missed that game. Just the tenor of the conversation when we did a show the following day and people were upset that we were happy, right? We were the bad guys being happy that Embiid dropped 70 and then we got the chance to watch that. So I'm sure a lot of people started watching afterward, and then he gets hurt not that long after.
Yeah, and I think that game was their last home win until the Cavs game Friday night.
Wow, really?
Yeah. It's not been ideal without him at all, in the slightest.
It's been very bad.
I wonder when there's people tuned out again. Like, if you tune back in after the 70-point game, how quickly did you tune back out? Which also, I told you, if you said, wake me up in the second round, night-night, you're still asleep, you know?
Yeah,
you might have heard a noise, but roll back over. We don't need you to, rain on all the parades here.
You might never wake him up out of the second round.
Well, yeah, that's going to be another problem. Hey, listen, right now, I've already crafted in my head the play-in. If you end up as number 7 going up against the Cavs, I got a good feeling.
Well, yeah, because you've won the last 2 against them. Now, the updated standings, so the Sixers. Oh boy.
It's scary.
Oh boy.
I wouldn't look too closely.
The Sixers only have a half-game lead ahead of the Magic and Pacers. So the 7th and 8th seeds, they're going to drop. Yeah. How about Pacers 8th seed? I thought Tyrese Halliburton was like the greatest player in the world. What happened to that? I thought he was the greatest player ever, and they were going to be a really good basketball team. What happened to them? That's what I was told by a lot of people, that they were the greatest team in the history of the world.
Call out who you want to call out here with this.
Oh, it's not just the guru. It's a lot of people. I thought, like, the way people talked about the Pacers because of Tyrese Halliburton, they were the greatest team ever.
No defense. That team, specifically.
They're the 8th seed, right?
That's true. They are the 8th seed. Tyrese Halliburton could both be very exciting, and that team also
and
be
suck at the same time, yeah.
Well, okay, come on.
They're the 8th seed.
Don't take the shot at Halliburton.
No, I'm saying the team can suck at the same time. But I thought he was supposed to uplift everyone and they were going to be the greatest team. Maybe the trade of Buddy Hield was terrible for him. Maybe they should have kept him. Maybe they sent the wrong message within the building. But anyways, the Sixers are the 6th seed, just a half-game lead over Orlando and Indiana. So that's 2 teams that are playing teams that are right behind you. They're going to be a playing team. It's going to happen. They're not going on a winning streak. They're not. There's no way the Sixers are going to not be they will not be a top 6 seed unless Embiid comes back early enough. Which yesterday, Woj on what was on NBA, was it Woj or was it Windy? One of them said that he's going to get. We'll get an evaluation next week. We've reached that time, so next Tuesday it will be. We'll get the evaluation from Joel Embiid, and there's still hope that he could play come end of March. And if he plays come end of March, maybe they can win a couple of games to get themselves back up. But if Joel Embiid, let's say he only plays 3 or 4 games before the season ends, do you really think they're going to not be a playing team? I think it's just inevitable at this point.
Yeah, it feels like whatever the word is.
It's going to be inevitable.
Inevitability. There you go.
Like it's going to
That's what it feels like. I'm not feeling great.
They're not winning games.
No. I mean, and we mentioned it earlier. I mean, the way Tobias is playing, inconsistency in the front court, and like you just have a number of problems piling up. And Melton again now with the back. Like I feel for the guy.
Yeah, he's banged up again.
Like
he
just spent that much time.
He had the lumbar issue.
That much time out with the injury to your back, and now you're banged up again, and it was the back again. Like it's almost exhausting with some of the issues that you're dealing with and what you're watching. I'm still watching though. You're not going to talk me out of this. You're not going to talk me into the why would I watch. I'm still learning, still trying to be educated here. It's just becoming more and more difficult.
Man, it is. All right, we got a little over 10 minutes left. So speaking of 10, I saw something during the break that I wanted to get to. Jimmy Kempski, he did his 10 takeaways, Ray, from the Serriani and Howie Roseman combine press conferences, right? So this is another guy that's every day a part of the team. He knows how to read into what's being said. So if you can, once more, play the Hassan Reddick clip from Howie Roseman, because this is the first thing that he gave a takeaway on. Here was Howie Roseman talking about Hassan Reddick when he was asked if he would come back.
Hassan, obviously, unbelievable player for the Philadelphia Eagles. local kid, great success story, Camden, Temple, Philly. Love having Hassan. I think that, anything that you're trying to do, you're trying to blend, obviously, what you're trying to do this year and how you're going to look in the future. And I think that's the hardest job. But certainly, don't want to get into any specifics with any conversations with players, but have tremendous respect for the player and the person.
My takeaway was that Hassan Reddick's not going to be back here unless he can't find the deal that he's looking for. And then, look, you have him under contract for one more year at $14 million. Now, could he hold out? Yeah, he could. But at the same time, it's like, well, you did have a chance to go out there and get your contract, and nobody wanted to pay the money. So here's, I love it. Jimmy Kempsey does #Jimmy's Translations. Reddick is under contract for one more season, and the reality is that he is underpaid relative to other similar performing edge rushers. The Eagles allowed Reddick and his representation to seek a trade, which will also allow them to explore what other teams are willing to pay him. They will let the market dictate what Reddick is worth, both in terms of trade compensation and pay, and then go from there. In other words, they'll let the market come to them. So I guess that's smart in terms of the Eagles' way of doing things with the market. But we'll see what Hassan Reddick is valued at around the league. Well, let's say he's valued at $22 a year, which could be. I don't know. He's at 14 right now this last year. Would you go up that high? I know he's the best player on this defense that isn't all that great, but if you're trying to rebuild a defense, you might need that money elsewhere.
Well, I think it depends on what the cap hit's going to be, because I think his cap hit is somewhere up not too far from that number. Like the AAV for his deal, like you mentioned earlier, was close to 14, 15, but I think his hit's larger this year. So I do think with an extension, you might be able to actually string that out.
$20 million.
I think it's something like that. So if we're talking about $22 million, like if you're able to restructure that in a way that, the cap hit is somewhere already similar to where you're at, but you're able to maybe get down in future years, or you're able to get down in this year, I would absolutely explore that and go down that rabbit hole. That's for someone that's got a spreadsheet and a much higher IQ than me. But I'm absolutely exploring every way to keep him here because, like you said, he's a talent on a defense that we have continued to complain about.
That is lacking talent. Right, exactly. The second takeaway was Howie Roseman was asked about Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, and he said that he wants them back. Right? Let me know if you have the clip because that'd be great. Here he is. He was asked about Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox coming back.
Obviously, those guys are unbelievable players, unbelievable people, and they deserve the right to decide what's best for them. And we'll wait and give them whatever time and space they need to make the right decisions. And I think the important thing from our perspective is you'd never want to see them wearing different colors. And I think for us, no matter when that is, if they want the opportunity to come back, we'd want to have the opportunity to bring them back.
So he wants them back. I like it. He said, look, we don't want to see him in another uniform. So I don't know if they're going to actively try to beg them to come back. Like, this is an interesting one because I don't want to see, like, Fletcher Cox in a Cowboys jersey, right? Something like that. Or any jersey. It doesn't have to be a Cowboys jersey. What about Cleveland? Remember at one point the Cleveland Browns was mentioned last year for Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. I imagine Brandon Graham, he was asked about Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox. I imagine Brandon Graham falls under this as well. He doesn't want to see them in other uniforms, but he's going to let them make the decision. Jimmy's translation is, it's perhaps worth noting that Kelce made his decision to return for another season at the 2023 Combine. Certainly the Eagles would like to have decisions from Kelce and Cox before the start of free agency, but in both cases they have succession plans already in place, so it's not imperative. Jimmy imagines that they will hear from both Kelce and Cox soon. This third one, this is an interesting one. All right, you don't have that's all right. So James Bradbury, they asked about it was talking about corners, and Bradbury was brought up. And Roseman said, quote, he's under contract, part of our plans, end quote. Kemsky reads into it by saying, in my experience, the phrase he's under contract means that he soon won't be. So I know a lot of people were bothered when they heard Howie Roseman say that James Bradbury is still a part of their plans. Well, part of their plans could be anything. Part of their plans could be cutting to create cap space because the post-June 1st hit would be $10 million, but the pre-June 1st is only $5 million, but then next year would be $15 million. Or you could try to work out a trade, which I don't see anybody clamoring for James Bradbury at this point. But Jimmy Kempsky does not believe that Bradbury will be back. Then there was the one about Jalen Hurts being the vocal leader. Here's what Nick Sirianni had to say.
There's not a book that is written on this is how you lead, right? People lead in different ways. And one thing I learned early about in leadership is that you have to be yourself. And everybody has to lead their way. And Jalen has special qualities that people will follow and people will want to follow. He's got to do what he needs to do to lead in that way. And so some people's leadership style is loud and aggressive. Some people's leadership style is by example, and some is a mixture of both. And so Jalen needs to lead how he needs to lead. And he'll get, just like he has done in other things, he'll get better at that part of his game, and he'll get better just because I know that he'll continue to work on getting better at no matter what part of the game he needs to work at.
So I'm like Jimmy in this case. He says, while I agree with the notion that you shouldn't try to be someone you're not when you're in a leadership role, being able to connect with a variety of different personalities is part of the job of an NFL quarterback in 2024, which I don't see how that can't be. Like, I didn't like Sirianni's answer there. Just like, he's just going to get better at what he's already doing. Well, what if what he's doing now isn't good enough in terms of being a leader? Now, I don't think Jalen Hurts is some poor leader, but leadership is not just yelling, or leadership is not just leading by example. There's a million ways that you can be a leader. And there's enough articles at this point, there's enough reports locally and nationally that that's something that Jalen Hurts has to work on. So it's great and all that Nick Sirianni has his guys back and says he's great at doing the stuff that he does, but when it's talked about by multiple people now and they're talking to multiple players and people inside NovaCare, Jeff McLane reiterated it when I had him on earlier today. You can hear that again on 97.5, thefanatic.com. Multiple people, players and personnel, they want Jalen Hurts to kind of adapt his way of being himself a little bit and be a better leader. The next one was, how do the Eagles intend on upgrading on defense this offseason?
Certainly, I think when we look back at last offseason, we made a conscious decision to kind of put a little bit more resources onto the offensive side. Knew that we'd lose some good players on defense. I think looking back, certainly missed some of those guys. That starts with me and making those decisions. And so I don't think there's an area that, we wouldn't, be open to addressing. Now, if you look at our defense and you're just kind of honest with it, well, we have a lot of young players at defensive tackle, right? So is that as big a priority as other areas, just being honest? Probably not, but that's also an important position. So we're also not going to be in a position where we're going to turn down a guy because the resources are already there because we believe in the D-line so much.
So, as Jimmy points out, what issues there were defensively. They're going to try to address that. My thing is, I wonder when Howie Roseman says he wants to be aggressive this offseason, which was one of the first things he said during yesterday's press conference. I wonder what that aggressive nature is going to be. Like, is it going to be trades? Is it going to be, signing big free agents? Jeff, when we had McLane on, he didn't really lead us to believe that they're going to go after, like, the top-priced free agents. It's going to be guys that make sense. I wonder what aggressive will mean for Howie Roseman this offseason. That's one of the things I'll be most excited about. Like, I've joked around about this, that last year's offseason was terrible from a sports radio standpoint. It was. But it was also a good thing from an Eagles fan standpoint, which we are, because we want the Eagles to win. And if there's no drama and there's no big holes that need to be filled, that means your team's good and you're happy about that. You saw what unfolded. You know the drama that's surrounding this Eagles team, and you saw how bad it ended up playing out with some of the players. This offseason, if you like playing armchair GM, which a lot of people love doing, especially with the Sixers and the NBA, this is a huge armchair GM offseason for Eagles fans. Everybody's going to be doing their mock drafts. There's the websites where you can do the drafts yourself. There's mock draft websites. There's going to be a million of those this year, and I think it's going to be done even more, and it's going to be interesting to see what a lot of people want the Eagles to do this offseason. We didn't even get back to the poll that we ran yesterday about the running backs, right? This is going to be a pretty busy offseason. I know Howie talked about the backs yesterday, too, a little bit. It's just going to be really interesting to see what they end up doing. So, look, we'll continue the conversation tomorrow. More Eagles talk tomorrow. It's going to be a wild offseason, a very exciting offseason. And just, more core values. The final clip that he talked about was the core values one, and Jimmy's translation was just, oof. It's exhausting. I can only imagine having to transcribe it.
I mean, Jeff laughed when you brought up core values.
Yeah, I know. He literally did laugh.
I mean, they've been listening to it now for how long?
Well, 3 years, but this was a big one now. Like they had to figure out what went wrong, and he's preaching those core values, man. It's amazing.
Well, they're going to figure it out. They haven't yet figured out what went wrong, but they will.
Which is very disappointing to hear, but whatever. All right, everybody have a great rest of your day. The best show ever is coming your way next with Tyrone Johnson and Ricky Patalico and Jen Scordo. Ray and I will be back here tomorrow on the Midday Show. Everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk to you on Thursday right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Well, the Sixers kept it close for at least a little while. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by